American clash as North America's Cloud9 faces off against Latin American North's Lyon Gaming, followed by EU's third seed Fnatic aiming to take down Hong Kong Attitude from the LMS. And when we return tomorrow, we've got 1907 Fenerbahce versus Team 1 and Team WE brawling it out against Young Generation. Well, as the battle for groups plays out, let's take a look at this week's Best of the Rift presented by T-Mobile, America's best unlimited network. Now, these are the players that we think could make or break their team's dreams of promoting to the next stage of Worlds. And first up for Cloud9, it's going to be Contracts.
The Contracts has been an absolute monster for them. He's #1 in team percent of damage for junglers at 26%, averages about 17%. But seriously, this is a big step up for him. He was already a high damage jungler, but now at Worlds, his rookie performance here, he's looking incredible.
I think that's the big thing too, is just he is a rookie. His spring split underperformed by most people's expectations. By summer, you could argue he was the second best player for Cloud9. I think here at Worlds, he's cementing that fact that he really is the de facto #2 player behind Jensen.
And it's really helped them because 2-on-2s in mid are something you don't want to take against Cloud9. Trying to shut down Jensen has been a strategy some people have tried to employ, but Contract stepping up kind of prevents that.
Have to see how he does in his matchup against Lyon. But next on our list, it is going to be 1907 Fenerbahce's Thaldrun, veteran leader for this team in so many ways.
Absolutely. I mean, there's so many good players on this team, but Thaldrun stands out to me as the complete rock. Doesn't feel like he's had a single bad performance this entire time. While Padden may take a little bit to turn online, and then he gets these pentakills. Frozen has been a little up or down in the early laning phase. Thaldrun is the guy every time playing well.
It's funny because, like, calling him a rock sometimes sounds like you're saying he doesn't have these high highs. But when I watch Thaldrun, it just looks like this guy always knows where to be. His Maokai ultimates on mid have allowed Frozen to get through the laning phase with an advantage, and then Padden gets those pentakills off of the ultimate, off of the play from Thaldrun, and I feel like this guy has been the facilitator for the team in team fights.
Absolutely. Just look at that mid play. It's so intelligent the way he wraps behind, sets his team up for a kill. Not like this, oh my god, how do you come up with this play? But it's these kind of consistent things that he gives his team to be able to get leads.
That's what I love about it, is consistent, because I've seen him make that play on Maokai and Galio like 4 times now in 4 games. So Thaldrun has been very methodical with when he gets his lead in lane. How does he spread that across the map as a tank?
Yeah, I'm just excited to see what he can do tomorrow. If he can keep that consistency up, what he's going to look like against Team 1. When we look at our next player, a similar playmaker, a similar consistent force for Fnatic, it's going to be Jesus coming in.
Absolutely. He was a large part of why they were able to dominate bot lane in 3 out of their 4 games. And then the one time they struggled, it really didn't feel like it was on him at all. He's also been a huge factor in their late game comebacks. So Jesus has really stepped up over the course of this tournament, being a large factor in their playmaking.
Yeah, Jesus was a player that, was a mid laner before, was at Worlds, was a coach for Immortals last year, and then he came in as a support with the lane swap or the role swap, and he's been looking fantastic with those engages and knowing when to take them.
Feels like a guy who has a lot more perspective on the game than some other people, just having played so many different roles, held so many different positions in teams, that he has this kind of like higher level thinking about the game that goes beyond just like, what do I do as my player or as my champion that I'm piloting?
And it's something that Fnatic have needed when they've had individual roles starting to fall through. Jesus being a rock has been very crucial for them. But finally, from Young Generation, our last player on the list is going to be Pallet. A similar story for supports, consistency being the key here.
Absolutely. I think when you look at Young Generation, they had that rough day 1. They completely bounced back in game 2. Pallet was someone who was able to step up in both of those games and was able to really give them that kind of need to avoid having to play any tiebreakers.
Yeah, and as we look forward, he's going to be playing against Team WE, who really heavily rely on Mystic during the mid parts of the game after getting him through the lane phase. And he might be up against Zero on support, who got subbed in for Team WE, and they looked better. So we're definitely looking at Pallet moving forward for what he can do for this bottom lane on Young Generation.
I'm honestly just ready for the 2v2s. I'm ready for people to kill each other in that bottom lane. I am so excited to see how this guy stacks up against Zero. But from the first buff till the final Baron, follow the Best of the Rift in more places than ever. T-Mobile, America's best unlimited network. Now, of course, we are going to get into our first match of the day, Cloud9 versus Lyon Gaming. Regardless of today's match, let's take a moment. Let's revel in the fact that a third North American team is getting to groups no matter what happens.
Yeah, it's just kind of sad they didn't have to play against a European and stop them from going.
Yeah, of course. Always want to look forward to that.
Please. But, of course, when we look at these two teams, Lyon Gaming came out swinging. They were looking so strong right off the bat, and I feel like a lot of that is due to some of their team history.
Yeah, I think that Lyon actually have a lot more history than just the 9 regional titles, right? Back when Challenger was starting, I remember them being on the ranked 5s ladder. They are very familiar with North American teams. They scrimmed a whole bunch of Challenger teams all throughout the years. They've scrimmed NALCS teams, and they've even back at MSI scrimmed international teams and had some international performances in wildcard tournaments. So they've always had inspiration or aspirations to be an international power, but this is the chance for them to finally prove that after the 9 regional domestic titles.
And it's been a long road for them, like you said, 9 titles, lots of international competition. It feels like they still haven't quite had that breakout performance where they grab the world's attention and force them to recognize them for how good they are. It's been a good start so far, kind of looking really strong in the play-in stage and being arguably the best, second seed to come out of groups, but they still have a little bit more work to do.
And of course, today, they could be in for some very quick games. Cloud9 looking like one of the most dominant teams in the group stage. It's going to be a scary opponent.
Yeah, absolutely. C9 averaged the fastest game time at Worlds so far, 26.5 minutes. They were also the fastest win team in North America domestically, so they got even better at it, and it's going to be very difficult, especially with Jensen and Contracts looking like they're playing so well.
Yeah, and when they're going up against somebody like Audi, who has very low jungle proximity, very low damage in the early parts of the game, Contracts has an advantage there. But Seiya versus Jensen is a little bit where I'm looking for that even matchup. If Seiya can go even there, then it might give kind of Cloud9 something to worry about, because playing around Jensen is most successful for them, and we saw them a little bit exposed. It didn't end the game, but having Sneaky be exploited in the bottom lane with White Lotus as his opponent.
Yeah, that's the other thing, too, is just if they don't fail to find one of these places to exploit other than mid lane, C9 are very good about closing out in the mid game, which is something that feels like they might have struggled a little bit for Lyon Gaming, where while they had those leads versus WE, they didn't close out so quickly.
Yeah, and of course, Lyon Gaming surprised us when they were able to go toe-to-toe with WE, and we have to wonder if they can stay even in the same way in the early game as Cloud9, which is a tough ask. Can they go even in the mid game when it comes to team fighting, when it comes to putting White Lotus into action?
Well, both these teams are number 2 and number 3, with Cloud9 being the number 2 one, in how many kills and assists they get from team fights, not the lane phase or skirmishes, just full-on brawls. So these teams are very bloody when it comes to the mid game, but what we saw from Cloud9 is once they do have 1 or 2 fights, that's how they end the game, and that's why they have such a fast average game time. But Lyon have shown they can match WE. Can they match Cloud9 here in that team fighting? And that's the big thing I'm looking for here.
I think it's also important to have like a good game plan moving into the actual series, because we've seen don't try and fight Jensen in the mid lane with Contracts. That's what they do best, and you're opting into that play style. It goes horribly wrong. Don't try and meet a freight train head on, go around it, something like that. And they have options, like you said, with White Lotus looking really good, as well as the fact that Gerald does play a fair amount of carries. And so if you find that the White Lotus game plan isn't going, you can try and pivot to taking Jaces and things like that and snowballing against Impact, who has been a little susceptible to that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I'm excited to see exactly how the top lane matchup will unfold, because that's something that Team 1 tried, didn't necessarily work out for them, but I'm really hoping that Gerald can show us just a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. He's been a little quiet compared to the rest of his teammates, but he has been playing very well as well, so he hasn't been picking quite as the aggressive stuff we're used to seeing. He could opt back into that, like I was saying.
Well, we're going to find out with the Rift almost set. Let's send it over to Captain Flowers and Rusty to get our first series underway.
Thank you, Dracos. I'm Clayton Captain Flowers Reigns, joined by the best thing out of Australia since AC/DC, Zach Rusty Pie. Are you ready for this?
I am so ready for this, and that's an honor to even hear that coming out of your mouth at all. AC/DC are fantastic, but I am expecting a fantastic set of League of Legends as well.
It should be an entertaining evening, and we're going to kick things off by looking at which players are fighting to get into groups. On the blue side, it's Cloud9 with Impact in the top lane, Contracts in the jungle, Jensen mid, Sneaky bottom, Smoothie supporting, and Coach Reaper.
And of course, facing them on the opposite side of the rift, it is in fact Lyon Gaming. When you look at them, top lane Gerald, jungle Odi, mid lane Seiya, AD White Lotus, support Genthix, and their coach Yeti.
And even though White Lotus comes into the elimination stage with some hype, Sneaky remains unfazed when it comes to today's match.
I'm worried going up against White Lotus. Like I said, I kind of play against him a lot in solo queue. He's on my team sometimes, so I kind of know what to expect. And yeah, I mean, I guess it's pretty impressive they got the first penna. It was against Gambit though. They kind of seemed to have faltered a bit. So I hope Lyon's ready for a safe fight home as they get eliminated from Worlds.
Those are fighting words if I've ever heard them.
Yeah.
Punching your opponent's ticket home quickly is Cloud9's goal here tonight, but they will have to get through a team that, like the analyst said, looks like the most impressive rank 2 team coming out of the group stage.
Yeah, it's an interesting conversation that does have to be had of firstly, how good were Team WE, and then how good were Lyon to be able to match them in the early game, almost beat them through one of their games, right? Is Lyon that good? Is Cloud9's group that they got through easier than perhaps that of Team WE's, or was it difficult and Cloud9 just looked that fantastic themselves? So there's a lot of context that we're about to discover when we see these guys play against one another. Cloud9 looked dominant, Lyon looks surprisingly good, and for a team that's had 9 straight titles, you'd want to hope they've found that strength.
And answering those kind of questions about which group was stronger and which group was weaker, those debates are always going to exist, especially when you have fans of a team in one group and fans in a team of another talking about, oh, well, my team could have done better or your team could have done better. But once you move on from the group stage and you get to this bracket stage and you get to see those teams go head-to-head, well, all the question marks wash away because this is where the better team is truly going to prevail. 5 games, plenty of time to adapt in between each individual game, change up the game plan. We heard the analysts talk about that a little bit as well. And honestly, that plays such a big role when you get to this part.
I think the key word that I take from that as well is the fact that it's a best of 5. So not only is the context of which group stronger going to be decided, perhaps which region going to be stronger as well, we also find out who can adapt the best if they lose. We haven't seen Cloud9 really get pushed to their limits, get pushed past the 30-minute mark, losing the game. 15 minutes of a disaster against the Direwolves, and they managed to win in 12 minutes after that. It's just like incredible to watch how they've been able to get these wins, but I really do believe that Lyon are a side that can push them to their limits, and we might see something different from them.
It should be fun to see if Lyon can make them sweat a little bit like they did to Team WE, a team that everybody was originally saying was the strongest looking team in the play-ins. Cloud9 stepped up and said, hey, we're looking pretty good too, and I'd be lying if I said that Lyon didn't do the same. Now we'll get to see these two go head-to-head into Champion Select for the first time tonight. Cloud9 going to start off banning away some tankier options. Braum and Maokai taken off the table, while the response from Lyon Gaming is to remove Jarvan and Rakan from the pool.
Yeah, the broadband, very much a lot of respect being paid to Lyon Gaming, taking that one away. Rakan as well, just a very strong champion in his own right, the most seen support throughout all of the play-ins tournament. The J4, the Maokai, the Galio, very much standard. I like that they're getting rid of the 2 flexes, however, between the Galio and the J4 respectively. Starts to limit what the first rotations of the picks can be, because flexes are usually the optimal choice.
Yep, the Galio taken out, the Cho'Gath also taken out by Lyon Gaming, and it looks like Cloud9 is going to go ahead and look towards that AD carry position for their first pick, locking in the Kalista for Sneaky.
And that's a really big win. Kalista for Sneaky, as we are getting some champions on the opposing side of the rift here. But just to quickly hit that, I mean, Kalista's a champion that's been banned more than she's been picked by quite a substantial number. The fact that she's even been let through at all is a major cause for concern.
And speaking about things being let through, Sejuani picked up by Lyon Gaming. This champion, I believe, is at 100% pick ban right now throughout the play-in group stage. It's going to maintain that now going into the bracket knockout stage itself. Not really much of a bracket. I mean, the start and end of the bracket is the same place, but it is the knockout stage, and it will continue the trend towards Sejuani with some more tankiness and horns also being picked up in the form of the Alistair. Going back to Cloud9, thinking about that Thresh now to pair with Kalista.
Yeah, not just thinking about it from the looks of it. They will be locking that one down, so a super strong 2v2 bottom lane. Lots of pick can come out of that composition. It's into an Alistair, which usually is okay for a Thresh to get through. Once again, having the range edge, the range advantage there. And then you've got a lot of bullying 2v2 threat here. For Lyon, you're expecting a Tristana as the AD carry in response, but there's no AD carry bans this time, so whatever they'd like is theirs.
And Cloud9 would like to add the Gragas to their lineup so they'll be able to have some more front line, some initiation, some displacement ability, some disruption. Should be fun to see exactly how that one plays out. Lyon has one more pick to go before they can end up going to the second part of the bans now. Hovering over the Singed. I don't know about if we're going to see that fully locked in. Nah, going towards that Tristana that you were talking about. That is the traditional pick into the Kalista.
Yeah, and it's also what you usually pick with the Alistair. And when you look at this combo of 3 champions that Lyon Gaming have picked for themselves, there's 2 tanks and there's a reset-based hyper carry in the Tristana. So early
Pretty
game,
meta.
already expecting Oddie to perhaps be near that side of the rift. I know the analyst Death said that might be the place you want to focus. I agree with them. Try and pick apart Sneaky and Smoothie the best you can. This is the 3-man unit that can already do that.
Let's see how the teams go into this second part of the bans. Each team with 2 left to go. Lion's going to spin their first on Rise, targeting Jensen's pool here a little bit. They know that Cloud9 still has to pick both solo laners. Honestly, Lyon Gaming has the same thing in front of them, so expect to see pure solo lane bans coming out from both sides.
Yeah, you'd have to imagine so. The Jace as well being taken away from Saya. Most importantly, Saya has been such a fantastic individual performer on the side of Lyon. He's one of the 2 carry points of the team. And I do appreciate that that is the place that they're going to focus. Jirol just plays team fighters primarily, but champions like Cho'Gath have been banned by Lyon, so it's even easier for the top lane pick ban. If you're Impact, all the time in the world, the concern is only going to be that red side counter pick that still rests with Lyon.
There we go. Lyon Gaming still targeting Jensen even further. Wants to remove the Corki from the pool. We all know how much Corki can do in the hands of a capable player. You maintain the distance, you poke your opponents out, but Lyon won't worry about it this time.
We're still looking at something like Syndra as one of the higher priority mid lane champions that isn't picked or banned just yet. Now Lyon does get the first pick here on the second pick phase with their fourth pick, and they should be locking up a mid laner unless they really want to counter Jensen, because they're not going to focus that lane.
Jax is the final ban of that second part of the ban phase, by the way. Cloud9 locking that one in to target Giral there. We heard the analysts talk a bit before the game about how Giral, although he does like to play those team fighters you talked about, we have seen him on carries before, so maybe that would be an option, but Cloud9 wants to eliminate that. There's the Syndra you were talking about.
Right, so instead of letting Jensen have the Syndra, which is obviously just a risk in and of itself, they decide to pick it because they could have tried to counter that Syndra. Again, champions like Echo, we saw Frozen playing that one the other day, can be used into the Syndra matchup. However, you have to remember, you pick Syndra, you leave open Jensen's Orianna. Maybe not his best champion, but he still has some very good moments with it.
This is one of Jensen's staple champions. This is one of his comfort champions, one of the ones you see him go back to time and again throughout the regular season for NALCS. You'll see Cloud9 maybe go down one in a best-of-3 series. Next game, they're getting Jensen that Orianna very quickly.
Yep.
They like to put this champion in when they really need to find the win and find that consistency. Glad to see him on that one if you're a Cloud9 fan, I'm sure, as Gnar will be the final pick for the representative from the North American LCS. Impact will be taking that one topside.
And in part, giving themselves an Orianna combo to a degree, of course. Gnar can slam them against the wall. You've got the Shockwave to follow that one up. Now, the Gnar being locked in, not knowing who his opponent is going to be is always a risk. Champions like Aurelia just exist on Summoner's Rift, of course. That's not going to be the case here. But at the same time, Giral's a team fighter primarily. They've banned so many of the tanky team fighting champions through that top lane. And now he goes towards something like the Camille into the Gnar. There is a fair amount of skill involved with this matchup. And Giral is taking on Impact.
I like to see those skill-based matchups, Rusty. Those are always the most fun ones as a viewer, at least in my opinion, because you get to see which player truly has the mastery of the matchup, truly has the mastery of the way to properly play the lane. So you've got these two different split pushers, but also capable team fighters in the top lane. We've got two different tanks here in the jungle with plenty of initiation capability. Do you think we are going to go ahead with that plan that the analysts were talking about, where if Lyon wants to find the win here, they find it through the bottom lane?
I mean, they certainly can go ahead with that team composition or that style of play when you look at the completed draft out of them. Just because, firstly, Sejuani, Alistar, Tristan are very good three-man, so the early laning phase can always rotate around that bottom lane. The amount of Syndras that we have, frankly, just seen roam around Summoner's Rift through mid lane has been unheard of. It's just a ridiculous amount of them. And Camille, not the best teleporter or team fighter, but the ultimate utility is always going to be there. There's no way that a Kalista can hop on out of that domain when she presses her ultimate. And so Giral can still kill Sneaky. It feels like, yes, absolutely, they could go towards that. But what I like is they could go anywhere.
Now, the one thing I will go ahead and comment on is that Cloud9 has a few different tools to remove Camille from her own ultimate, which is how you can manage to get that canceled, keep somebody safe. Shockwave from Orianna, the Flay from Thresh, the Mega Gnar from Gnar, all of these things can actually remove that, and especially the Cask from the Gragas.
And that's the one big one that will knock Camille out of it. When you look at the rest of those, very difficult to execute. You need to be on the rim of it.
Cases.
Yeah, in the first place. But Gragas can have a lot of counterplay here against the Camille, except you've still got the Sejuani Gragas matchup. A lot of similarities between the two. You control mages in the mid lane, and then a Kalista and a Tristana in the AD carry role. I mean, there are a lot of similarities between these comps.
And it looks like we're going to see a pause. Starting off, we're just getting them out of the way early. That's all. We're just
Shaking
working
the
out.
jitters off.
Yep.
Taylor
working out the
Swifting it.
problems right now. Everything is going to be Gucci afterwards, and then we're going to have ourselves an exciting best of 5.
Certainly hope so.
The fans are excited. That is a lot of thundersticks, a lot of signs there in the audience. Everybody is pumped to get this elimination stage underway. Remember, there is no loser's bracket. There is no second round. There is no double elimination. This is it. These teams have managed to fight here. They didn't get eliminated in the group stage, but now it just comes down to a single best of 5, 8 teams left, 4 of which will get to go on and play in the main event. The other 4 will get to watch comfortably from home.
And you know, we gave this context the last time that we casted together a couple of days ago, is that teams can come to this tournament, they can play for 2 days, and then they are completely removed from the tournament and they have to go home. Well, the difference between them and what is now Cloud9 and Lyon is 1 extra day. They've still only been here for 3 days of playing games in total, and that's a very short time to be here to then go home. I know a lot of NA fans would still want to see Cloud9 making the entire tournament's group stage, but so will all of the Latin American fans for Lyon. It's such a short amount of time to be here to then just have to go home.
Oh, absolutely. And even when you see some of the trash talk or friendly banter on Twitter back and forth between the teams, Jensen's latest gem of why am I playing against a player named White Lettuce? You got to see both people in that thread kind of commenting. You had the Cloud9 fans cheering Jensen on, saying, yeah, smack talk these guys. And then you had the Latin American fans calling Jensen all sorts of choice words for his aggression towards their team because they really want to see Lyon move forward and find the win here.
And speaking of the White Lettuce, of course, Jensen had the small keyboard issue, but it is resolved now. As you can tell, we're back onto Summoner's Rift. Fans back into being excited about this game happening.
All right, let's see how everybody decides to start this one off at level 1, because right now it seems like we're getting pretty much standard operation across both sides. Everybody taking those defensive positions. You see a very early control ward actually placed down by the side of Lyon on the edge of their jungle there to keep an extra eye out as they move towards that bottom part of the map. And if it comes down to the fan vote, it looks like it's 60-40 in the favor of Cloud9 on this one. So the C9 fans showing up in force today, one of North America's biggest fan bases, and it shows.
Oh, but of course. Now, we have mentioned that control ward very briefly. That was Oddie, I believe, that has placed that one, as he only has the 1 potion in his inventory. It means he's only going to have the 1 potion there, so you'll have to watch the way that he passes himself through the jungle right now, skipping those raptors, which is what I expected to see from him. The question is, it can't be a scuttle. Where on earth is he going?
Is he just going to do the cheese gank level 2
He's a
top?
Sejuani that is about to level 2 cheese gank top lane. Impact level 1. This is working.
All right, here we go. Impact doesn't have his jump away, remember. Impact flash into the hook shot. They may just be able to find this kill. Audie with the flash. Impact goes down. First blood for Lyon.
And Oddie just barely gets out alive as well, tanking the turrets. The absolute confidence coming out of Lyon. And I'll tell you what, that is not some bottom lane focus by any means. They want it straight into Impact's lane. Jirel picks a carry and shows that he can do it as well.
The level 2 red buff into gank pays off. Lyon has got to be ecstatic about this one. And now they're having their blue buff stolen away.
Now we get to see this one again. Of course, the blue buff is going to be taken away. Impact never would have seen this coming. He probably should have flashed at the moment that Oddie threw out his first spell, but Jirel, that was so classy coming out of the top laner of Lyon. Just enough damage down to kill that Gnar. That was very close between Sejuani dying for a trade for the 1-for-1 and perhaps not even getting the kill in the first place at all. But they get it. That is what matters.
They get it. They coordinate it well enough to avoid the trade. Honestly, just really well played by the side of Lyon Gaming. And that's honestly what I really like to see in these kinds of games, Rusty. When you come into this, a lot of people would say, I think almost everyone would say, that Cloud9 is the team with the edge in this head-to-head between these two teams. So if you're the team that has their work cut out for them, if you're the team making that uphill battle, you've got to be creative. You've got to find different ways to find these leads and put yourself in a spot where you're no longer at a disadvantage. You're the ones that now have to be feared. You're the ones that people are saying, okay, well, maybe they're going to walk away with this. And it's that kind of creative decision-making, that unexpected play that I think can really put them in.
And it wasn't even just creative. It was stylish, but it was confident. They had the confidence to make a play like that in a best-of-5 elimination round to knock yourself out of Worlds. The ward has spotted them, but Smoothie may still get Genthix here.
Here we go. Genthix going to be the one who's initially targeted on this one. More CC coming out as the damage also follows up, and now Sneaky going to be jumped up by Audie, who shows up for the 3v3. Contract still staying on the front line. Smoothie going to be looking for more now as well. Ignite down onto Genthix. There comes your body slam. Tying the game up 1-1.
Overstaying their welcome here on the side of Lyon. As Oddie dashes in, they think they have the capabilities to hang around, maybe get that pick onto Sneaky, but they stayed far too long. Smoothie had the ignite. He saved it that entire time. So really good reservations coming out of Cloud9's support to get the kills. And now Lyon are made pay for it.
Lyon, they've got 1 kill on their jungler, but Cloud9 getting the kill onto their own jungler keeps things, honestly, just par for the course, back and forth between these two teams, making sure that they can have those playmakers ready to go, continue making those plays across the lane. And I always enjoyed the discussion of, do you want the money on your jungler or not? But we're going to take one more look at how that money got there.
And the good thing is that they focused Gentex. Now, he flashes at the correct time to dodge the hook. The heal was already used by White Lotus to keep him in because they wanted to fight. But they should not have wanted to fight in this situation. Once again, Contracts still full health, able to stand in front. Smoothie still standing in front. Sneaky had his summoner spells. There wasn't really a chance of getting that kill. They just overreached.
You can see there a comparison on your screen between Contracts and Audi in the play-in so far. Contracts with a higher jungle proximity means he's spending more time around his laners. He's got a higher kill and assist at 15, and he's first out of everybody in damage percentage of his team. This guy is putting up increasingly impressive numbers as we go on, and that's why you got to respect him. If you're Lyon, even though you might be able to make the counterplay there, it doesn't mean you're going to win.
Now that's almost double the damage percentage of any other jungler in this entire tournament. He has been doing so much work, Contracts. This time around, he's on the Gragas. He's going to be building tanky. That damage may go down, but so far he's even got that first kill. He's got his share and everything. Very impressive start to the tournament from him as well.
Slight gold lead here for Cloud9 after the dust has settled on those first couple of kills. Top lane, jungle, the farm's pretty much even. Bottom lane, where a lot of that gold lead is coming from, as you can see Sneaky building himself up about a 15 CS lead over White Lotus's Tristana.
Now they can still go for this at any moment, especially when the leap is gone. Sejuani's hanging around. Jarell's level 6, which is why they can. Impact can't flash to safety. The reason that they wanted to do that around the Mega Gnar timing as well is because a lot of Gnars, to harass their lane opponents, may just use the ultimate. Gives them control of the lane when they come back to mini form, and then they can use and abuse that range advantage and that movement speed advantage. They don't get the gank off this time, but I like the idea coming out of Lyon. Impact's just too hard to gank, it seems.
You can also see a lot of wards placed down by Lyon Gaming in this top part of the river, really keeping an eye on if Impact is calling Contracts up there for any kind of help, whether he's coming over the wall, walking up the river itself. They got the Scuttle Crab for him. They really want to keep tabs on Contracts moving around this northern area.
They definitely do, but none of the vision is too deep. They've just got one over the wall where the explosive plant is, and that's probably the deepest vision that they will have for finding Contracts. A lot of what they're doing right now, it feels like, is just controlling neutral areas so that they can unlock Audi to at least move. He's got freedom. He knows if they're invading him as the Sejuani, and then they can react and counterplay for exactly that. But C9, I mean, they haven't had any crazy aggressive moves. They stole a blue buff, but past that point, nothing yet. You will start to see that vision grow from C9 now, however.
Level 6 online for Contracts. The Explosive Cask, a massive addition to his ganking tool arsenal. So going to be looking to see him utilize that, especially while Audi is still only level 5. It gives Contracts a huge advantage if these two find each other in the same skirmish yet again. You can see Contracts really wanting to move up into enemy territory here. Gets a swig out of the cask, standing right on top of a ward, has Jensen behind him.
They all know.
Starting up the enemy blue. They want to steal this away for the second time. Audi's going to be potentially in some trouble here if he tries to go in too quickly ahead of the rest of the team, but Seiya says, nope, I'm taking this away.
Get back in.
We're gonna make it impatient. We're gonna throw it off to the side, and you can't have it. Contracts
reset.
to take it, can't quite get there.
So well done from Sei to auto-attack it one more time, redirect the aggro of blue buff. Maybe they still get it. I actually don't think they will because they've wasted way too much time. White Lotus and Gentex wanted nothing to do with that. But here comes Sejuani, it's a counter gank.
Smoothie landing the hook, but now he's got to be pulled to safety by Sneaky, and that is the power of Callista Thresh.
All of this time, Gragas has been hovering around the area. It's just so hard to kill a Callista or a Thresh again. Not just the Callista ultimate, it's the Lantern. But what that does mean is they can catch Thresh now simply because there is no Callista ultimate. Much longer cooldown than that of a Lantern if Callista is caught out of position.
This means Smoothie's going to have to play a little bit safer down here. Cloud9 going to have to think a bit more if they want to go aggressive. Contracts again. Going to be looking to steal this blue buff away, but Seiya.
Here we go again.
Once more with the tether, not allowing these sort of shenanigans to go down as Audi jumps in and Smite secures.
That's just tragic for Seiya above all else, however, because he doesn't get that blue buff. Now, his Lost Chapter will give him some mana for the moment, but he's one wave off having to recall. So Cloud9 knowing exactly that, yes, Audi gets it, and yes, it denies it from Contracts, they've got the ability to make the plays immediately.
And this is a very valuable play to make onto the Infernal Drake, typically the highest value Drake if you look at what teams want to prioritize. Cloud9 sees their opportunity to go on this here with Seiya having that very limited mana pool you just mentioned. It means Cloud9 should take this without any contest, especially with Sneaky having the Rin secure.
And it's a very cute play from Cloud9, but mostly because their bottom lane still has control of the 2v2. Is that allowed to happen at all? Remember the amount of times that Sneaky and Smoothie have just left their lane casually, walked towards the enemy blue buff, now towards the Drake, and there's no trade or contest available from White Lotus and Genthix, is the biggest reason that C9 are getting all of these things right now.
And remember, Lyon Gaming, as a team, they're very, very dominant in their region. We've brought this point up 100 times already, but it means that they are used to beating their opponents, if nothing else, because they are strictly better players. And now,
Here we go, Sejuani, that's deep.
Trying to start this playoff onto Impact. As Audi comes in from behind, but Impact will just jump over his head to safety. That one was botched a bit.
And it's a full lane swap from Lyon. Perhaps Odi could have thrown his ultimate out earlier to make him flash, at least get the summoner spell out of Impact. But at the same time, they've swapped their lanes. This is the goal that they wanted all along. The kill would have been the consolation prize at the end of the day. But Alistar Tristana is not going to push a Nara away from the structures. And so White Lotus and Genthix just go back to base. They are trying to actively avoid Sneaky and Smoothie in the 2v2.
Which goes back to what I was saying earlier. This is a team that's used to winning their lanes, that's used to just saying, we've got better players than you, so we win. But now you're matched up against more competitive teams. You're on an international stage, and you can't fall back on those win conditions that you're able to utilize throughout the regular splits worth of play. Normally, Lyon is a massive fish in a pretty small pond. You've gone to the biggest pond of all, competing in Worlds 2017. It's time to prove how big of a fish you really are.
They certainly have. Now, I feel like the reason they may have gone for something like this as well is just to start causing disarray amongst the entirety of the map. This might be an all-in.
Seiya unleashing the power onto Jensen, but only finds about half his health bar. Seiya very low mana, means he's got to get back. Utilize this opportunity with the push wave to take care of that one, as Lyon has 3 bodies bottom pushing onto the tier 1 turret. Seeing how fast they can take this one down. Cloud9 also working on that top lane tier 1. And the first turret goes down in the favor of Lyon Gaming, just barely.
Yeah, I was expecting the Orianna perhaps to go in, but Odi was nearby, so good awareness from Jensen. Ultimately, the trades are still happening on the bottom side and top side of the map. Tristana and Camille excel at taking down structures by having the satchel charge, having the bonus damage on the Q and energizing those attacks. And because they are avoiding Cloud9, they lose tempo on the push, but their champions, their composition allows them to still get the structures quicker. And so at the end of the day, it's a nice little thing to have there for Lyon. They need that given where the gold was stretching.
Right, gold lead still at about 1,000 gold as Contract steals the enemy red buff, potentially looks towards mid lane here. Not going to find his way onto Seiya in time. Stun not going to connect there from Scatter the Weak. But you can see that gold lead continuing to build for Cloud9, and a big reason, I mean, look at bottom lane. We mentioned a little bit ago how it was 15 lead for Sneaky. That's grown up to a 30 CS lead for him over his opponent. Really showcasing his talents here as an AD carry, now working together with Contract.
I have to feel like they'll fight for this. You just have to get that feeling. Teleports in early from Impact. It looks like they're ready to match it.
Wants to make sure he's there on time. Audi jumps in, finds his way on the Smoothie. Rift Herald going to be taken down, secured by Sneaky's Ren. Does Lyon fight this? They whip the Glacial Prison, and now the call to retreat is there.
That's so tragic. He had so many targets in the sea, and he just couldn't pick any of them, and so he missed them all. And Lyon will have to disengage. The Herald is free. It's going to be secured by Contracts, and Cloud9 have the capabilities to take down that mid lane turret if they choose. Or if Lyon continue to side lane, continue to try and pressure and mismatch the game, well then you can get 2 turrets perhaps on the bottom side of the Rift, which is the other place they would be looking.
That feels so bad if you're Lyon. You got everybody there, you put all that effort into it, only to have the Glacial Prison miss, and then you call the whole thing off. Very unfortunate for them. Frozen Mallet now up and running, by the way, on Impact. Means he's going to be so annoying. If he actually lands a single auto attack onto anyone, he can stick to them forever. Blade of the Ruined King, done for Sneaky. Jensen getting that Morello Namicon. Same can be said for Seiya. So we're starting to see these first item power spikes hit for a lot of champions across the map right now, Rusty.
The Frozen Mallet has so much use as well against the team composition out of Lyon. And speaking of, Giral may be in trouble in a minute if he overextends. And so when you look at it, Camille goes forwards, really struggles at going backwards when she's forwards. Alistar can only really go one direction himself also.
Contracts really wants this blue buff. He is just obsessed with this thing, constantly trying to steal it away.
Look at Saya's mana. Every single time he goes for the blue buff, he pushes away if he overextends, and suddenly the smite has been used twice in a row. So whether Contracts gets it or not, as long as Saya doesn't have it, Cloud9 are winning.
Yeah, it's still a win. You don't have to steal the thing away, just put it on Sejuani. As long as the mid laner doesn't get to abuse that spell spamming and is always at this disadvantage, you're going to continue to see Jensen build those.
And look what happens. He has to go back to base, has no mana for himself, and suddenly the Rift Herald spawns in the middle lane, and that's just going to be an outer turret secured.
Dural and Impact getting into that 1v1. Impact jumping forward almost onto the Mega Gnar. Lands another boomerang, continuing to apply the slows, but Audi is here, and now Impact may have found himself in not an ideal situation. Going to be stunned up underneath the turret and outplayed. Impact goes down.
Oh, but here comes the reinforcements.
Contracts comes in, makes sure he cleans up the kill that Impact started, and now they are going to take Audi out as well. 2 for 1. Going the way of Cloud9.
They're able to dive, get the advantageous trade. They took the mid lane outer turret before all of this happened, so Lyon will do their best to trade. Genthix is just going to play goalkeeper, try and prevent them from getting there. It looks like they'll be able to get it. They might not because the Tristana left early, and they can get out.
A bit more damage. They will be able to find it, secure that turret for themselves, tie that count up 2-2. They're still down 1,500 gold, and that's before Smoothie and Sneaky grab this bottom lane tier 1. Lyon responding pretty well to what Cloud9 is doing, but Cloud9 still just continuing to build these leads.
And I don't think the Lyon are by any means responding poorly ever as a shockwave has been used.
Shockwave from Jensen,
Right,
unleashed power from Saya. These guys are really flexing on each other.
Just need to calm down a little bit. No one's dying. Everyone relax. We're trying to play macro League of Legends, and mid laners are just butting heads.
Top side, White Lotus and Genthix trying to get this third tier 1 for themselves, while Sneaky just doesn't really care about this at all, going for the second elemental Drake of the game, along with help from Contracts. Ren plus Smite together, I mean, you don't really have to worry about securing that when they do manage to pick that one up. So that's even more hidden power for this team when you're looking at what they have in terms of gold. Replay of how this fight went down bottom.
Yeah, now once again, Frozen Mallet on the Gnar. Dural chooses to go out, and so there's always the chance that Impact can go forwards. He's got that Frozen Mallet, he's diving, he's flashed, and then he's done absolutely nothing after the flash, and at that time, Sejuani's come in. Really makes you wonder what Impact was planning, but Contracts, he's got his back. Then all of the reinforcements arrive, and it's not just Contracts that's got him. Good turret aggro juggling, the fact that it goes to Smoothie after Contracts, and doesn't go to Sneaky.
And honestly, Impact was one auto away from being able to take Dural down there, but one auto is sometimes just enough to tilt you into killing yourself underneath the tier 1 turret, which unfortunately for Impact happened, but fortunately for him, the rest of the team is there. 3-2, the game in the favor of Cloud9 by a little bit over 2,000 gold as they push forward, thinking about trying to steal away this red buff. Audi wants to secure it for himself. Sneaky might get the Pierce here. Contracts tries to swoop in, but it is going to be secured by Audi.
Certainly is as they're going forwards.
Okay, the cast goes off. Doesn't really find anything as the Glacial Prison will lock Contracts down, but he gets away with the Lantern.
Rather large committal to someone who's got the Lantern to keep him alive. Contracts is a very tanky member on the Rift at the moment also with that Spectre's Cal, even a cloth armor with his Merc Treads. Not a lot's going to kill him. Or it will take a lot to kill him.
Yeah, 2 ults for 1 there as well. You had both the junglers popping the ultis as well as Saya using the Unleashed power. So now if C9 can manage to find themselves a fight before those cooldowns come back up, they will have the advantage. Sneaky and Smoothie pushing up the top side here as Cloud9 continues to take the fact that they've got all these outer turrets down, move into the enemy jungle, put down the vision, and set up to continue building these mid-game leads that the analyst desk was talking about. And that's why they're able to close these games so darn quickly.
Yeah, this mid lane, mid-game even, is working super well for them as they look towards the middle lane, threatening them, pushing them away, beating them around the Rift as Dural wants a fight.
Dural saying, all right, we're just going to stand here and man fight this little Yordle, trying to take him down if he can, but Impact is quickly going to be going into Mega Gnar form, stunner to stun. Not that fun unless you're the Impact, in which case it is fantastic. Finds himself a solo kill.
That's not the fight you want, Dural. He's picking his wrong battles here. Impact just stands and delivers. I feel like the Ninja Tabi is just enough at the moment, this early on in the game, to mitigate the damage coming out of that Camille. And with the Frozen Mallet there, you know, Dural, he said, I'm taking the fight. He knew there was no escape, and there absolutely was not. But he also positioned himself next to 2 walls with a Mega Gnar.
Not generally the best tactic to approach, but it does end up putting Cloud9 up 4,000 gold as we're about to crest the 20-minute mark. Baron will be live here in 20 seconds. Next Drake will be Infernal number 2. So if Cloud9 can continue this domination over the map, they'll likely have that for themselves here as well. Audi and the rest of Lyon getting in position to defend the tier 2 in the top side as Cloud9 backs away. But just look at the vision, Rusty. Top side as well as in the bottom part of the jungle. You can see a ward placed down there by Impact as well to kind of keep sights on Giral. These guys are really just trying to choke the life out of Lyon right now.
And once again, we just hovered over Saya's lack of mana. He's going back to base, but at the exact same time, he's pressing recall. Impact's pressing buttons on his blue buff, and so he's not going to get it again. Every single blue buff that he wants to secure, he's being denied. And all of the presence that you get through mid lane just by having that blue buff on Orianna and not having that on Syndra suddenly opens up the entire map. All of the vision they can place in the enemy jungle, it's easier to secure. All of the ability power bonus that Saya could be getting to assassinate people is eradicated. He can't pressure his lane. It's really unfortunate that one small thing starts to add up to such a big deal.
And honestly, what really impressed me with Lyon when we got to see them in the play-in group stage, especially in their games against WE, the ones that they lost, even in their losing matchups, they kept their carries in a spot where they were able to stay safe. Their positioning was really good. They had these amazing KDAs. I mean, we remember the first game against WE, they didn't die until the very end. In this game, they still haven't died, but the scoreline for both of these big carries, these game changers for Lyon Gaming, is 0-0 and 0. They have not contributed anything other than farming to the team effort.
These game changers need to actually start changing the game. It looks like they're about to.
That's one way to put it. Smoothie able to find the hook onto Saya, but now he's found himself in the middle of multiple members as now the counterattack from Cloud9 is live. The cast going to 5. Sneaky grabbing the kill onto Adi, manages to save Smoothie as well. Gentix not going to be the target as Impact finds his way onto Giral yet again. Jensen grabbing the kill on that one, and it's 3-0 Cloud9.
And not the impact they needed. In fact, both of them stay at 3-0s on the score, but Cloud9 win the team fight. Impact the rest of them straight over to the Baron pit. That was pretty clean coming out of them in the enemy jungle. They had all of the vision they needed in an area that's usually dark, and they control Summoner's Rift.
Very well played by Cloud9, moving into the enemy jungle, controlling it with that vision like we were talking about, and the fight win just immediately flows into their pockets afterwards because of the setup, because of the gold lead. This is what they were looking for, and honestly, this is right in line with what we were expecting. Like they talked about in the introduction to this game, Cloud9 is ending their games on average 26.5 minutes, and this is why.
And it all starts with Smoothie well out of position. They can see Odi clearing a ward, however, so they know where the Sejuani is. They don't see the Syndra. Their reactionary play to that Syndra is incredible. Saya zones himself because he thinks that Impact might be mega enough, but he comes in completely uncharged as Mini. The teamfight's done from that point onwards either way because the carries aren't able to have an impact. White Lotus and Saya invisible in the fight. Jensen sneaky hitting the entire time.
And Lyon manages to focus the one target that can be made invulnerable and pulled to safety by Sneaky's Ballista, so they can't get anything back in trade. And now Cloud9 find themselves that second Infernal Drake, even more damage now, multiplying that gold lead that they have 7,000 up over Lyon Gaming 23 minutes into the game. Impact thinking about maybe tossing the boomerang out here, but not really worth the risk at this point in time.
But I love that he has the option.
Yeah.
The fact that there's a red
the
buff,
limit.
and Impact's like, oh yeah, I probably could throw a Q out here just because we have vision, we have Baron, like we're so set up. This is the third red in a row. Not even talking about blue buffs anymore.
All right, he does find himself jumped on by the Sejuani now, but that's a very aggressive jump out by White Lotus. Impact going to be flashing himself away, and here they go, trying to find the pick onto the Cloud9 top laner. The Lantern is down, will pull him to safety, and just barely keep him alive.
He's going to survive. Unfortunately for Cloud9, he is the lack of teleport top laner at the moment. But they're still going to push in. He's close to Mega. I guess they've got a lot of trust in the shields that can keep him up. But they've also got the inside track. They thought that Lyon were going to come and react, and they didn't.
They just barrel down the bottom lane. They find the tier 3 turret, but now the fight's going to be breaking out. Impact with the stun down onto Gentix, jumps in, slam into the wall onto White Lotus. The Hextech ultimatum is issued, but immediately canceled as Sneaky finds the rampage and the double kill. Adi sidesteps his way away from the death sentence, but Cloud9 has issued a similar sentence onto this game. Lyon on their back foot, taking their final breaths. Cloud9 approaching the next.
They're going towards the end, it looks like.
Turret number 1 nearly deleted, and it is out of there. Only one turret left standing to protect the Lyon Gaming Nexus, and they've only got 3 members to defend it. A nice shockwave coming out from Jensen to allow Sneaky to dominate 6-0 and 2 on this Ballista. Audi and White Lotus remain, but that is it. And Cloud9, in quick fashion, find their victory in game 1.
Yeah, at the very end of the game, they get some interaction on Summoner's Rift for Saya, but 0-1-0 was going to be his score.
Not the interaction you wanted.
Still 3 zeros for White Lotus. Nobody playing the optimal game from Lyon, but it was close. There was these good things that we were seeing from them. We just saw better from Cloud9 at every single avenue.
Cloud9 looks like the same team with the same momentum that we saw in the group stage. And towards those questions we were talking about that you proposed where you said people are wondering, how tough was WE? How tough was Cloud9's group? Were they able to win so quickly because they were up against weaker opponents, or were their opponents strong and they just look that good? And going up against Lyon Gaming, who we were saying looks like the best Pool 2 team, Pool 2 seed, whatever you want to call them, Cloud9 finished them off just as cleanly in this first game.
And a lot of this comes down to contracts as play, being able to go to the enemy blue buff, timing enemy jungle camps, the vision that Cloud9 were playing, but most importantly as well, just winning their lanes, having control of their lanes, then relates to getting into that jungle, winning all of Summoner's Rift at that same time. And that's just compliments of perhaps being able to best their players that they're versing against, who are meant to be top-tier challenger players.
Well, to hear more about how Cloud9 took game 1 of the series, let's send it back to the analyst desk.
Thank you very much, Flowers. The first thing we want to take a look at is the pick and ban phase, because it feels like both teams actually had very, very solid drafts.
Yeah, this is probably the first time so far in Worlds that I've looked at both team compositions and gone like, okay, I feel like both teams walked away with things they really wanted here. Cloud9 have comfort with the Thresh, the Gnar, and the Orianna, and then they have some power picks with the Kalista and the Gragas. And then on Lyon's side, they have a winning top lane later on in the game. They have a mid lane that doesn't lose, and then they have scaling with the Tristana, which is comfort for White Lotus.
And the big thing for me is just that whenever you have two competent teams drafting, you're always going to end up with evenish trades. So C9 get more around their bot lane. You end up with more for Lyon around the top and mid side, and that is actually probably good for Lyon, all things considered. This is where you want to be putting your pressure up on the top side. We're talking about maybe snowballing around impact, and it was just a situation where if Lyon's able to execute, this is a great draft for them.
And we talked a lot about Geralt being one of those potential guys to step up and carry. And if we take a look at this first blood coming into the game, we can see that Lyon actually do a very good job of executing on an early snowball play.
Yeah, I've been loving Adi's routes to try and set up his team. The one where he played against the Ezreal, this one to also have Geralt flash on the E. And taking E level 1 on the Camille, this is a very thought through level 1, level 2 here to get that kill.
Very smart, but also required a lot of execution. That was not an easy kill to secure. They're able to grab it. And the thing, it didn't actually end up snowballing the game at all, because I think C9's blue buff control was immaculate. They didn't give a single blue buff over to Sia this entire time. And so while you want to keep snowballing around the top side, you just never have a chance to do that because there's so much pressure in your bot jungle, also with C9's bot lane playing very well.
The other thing for me feels like because the kill goes over to Adi, it's significantly worse. Because if Camille gets that kill, maybe we start to see the snowball. But the second we left that early game, it felt like Camille never even got the chance to go into that 1v1 with any kind of advantage because the teams were moving around the map so much.
Yeah, and there's just so much pressure bottom at that point. Adi has to give up his entire bottom side jungle. The blue buff ends up affecting mid lane. So now you've kind of given away an advantage on the bottom and the mid side of the map that C9 actually, well, they turn it into an advantage for themselves. And now Lyon kind of have to play through top and jungle, but your jungle isn't getting as much experience, right? So it's really just top lane at that point, who didn't even get far enough ahead, like you said, because they didn't get the kill, they got the assist.
Yes, C9 took this kind of really explosive level 1, level 2 gameplay and then just grinded the game out. There was that good single kill in the bot lane out of Sneaky when Contract showed up, and then they take that turret, they take the Infernal Dragon, they flip up to the top side, and I will say Lyon had really good macro keeping up with them. Camille read that was coming, went down to the bot side, actually enabled them to get the first turret gold before C9, but it just wasn't enough because they were always at CS deficits and they were giving away blue buffs and things like that.
And these are the small things that I feel like we don't see enough in emerging regions in terms of game plan from what Cloud9 had. Cloud9 are saying the blue buff is literally what's going to control this. The blue buff can go over to anybody but Saya because he's the wave clear. Even when they just get him low on mana, they force him out. That's when they Rift Herald mid lane, right? They keep doing these things around this one objective timer. It doesn't have to be a turret. It doesn't have to be these rotations. It just has to be this pressure point of the bottom is winning, your jungle is winning, and your mid lane is going even. Just make sure you give Jensen blue because you started it, and then the blue timers are actually staggered, so you can always contest the enemy one.
And while it did feel like Lyon were keeping up for so much of the early game in terms of macro plays, I felt like C9 always just got a little bit more. That Infernal, that Rift Herald, and we got to the point where Camille, who we thought would be able to win this lane matchup, Impact goes for the early Frozen Mount, and suddenly this isn't even a point on the map where they win anymore, where Gnar is actually comfortable taking the 1v1s.
It did feel potentially like Jarrell wasn't playing it as aggressively. A lot of these trades started out with Impact getting his first hyper proc and a good chunk of damage back onto the Camille, but it's understandable that he's playing in that situation because you are down this pressure everywhere else on the map. It can feel a little risky to just brute force a play.
And something that was kind of obvious from the draft here was they were trying to put something, make something happen in the top lane, whether it was Lyon or Cloud9, both kind of opted into it. There are 6 top lane bans, and then they pick the Gnar, which is a S tier in terms of line pick for Cloud9. And that means that you're looking at your 8th top laner, and he goes for Camille, which of course isn't completely out of his wheelhouse, but it's not one of those neutral tanks. It means you have to play the top lane in some way, shape, or form. If you're picking a carry, you can't just leave it there. And so they end up having to go there, which allows bottom side to be the opening for Cloud9 to take.
And we'll have to see what Jarrell can do moving forward, because we talked a lot about him being a potential point where Lyon could play around, and now it looks like that might not be quite as confident as it was before. And as we moved later into the game, we saw in our second replay that once C9 did get control, most of the game wasn't bloody, but they finally found a way to find those kills.
Yeah, this game ends up being 24 minutes and 42 seconds, because once they get that lead, it just goes insane.
Yeah, I mean, this is what C9 does so well. They pick a fight in the enemy team's jungle. Doesn't start out super well, but Thresh can afford to be a little risky, just given that he has the Calista backup. They end up saving Smoothie. The rest of Lyon is already committed to this fight. Impact's wreaking havoc out on the backside, and the one target that they were trying to kill was the enemy team support, so no surprise when he lives, that fight goes south very quickly.
Yeah, Smoothie actually had a fantastic game. It's not going to show so much in the stats, but the way he was deflecting ganks and starting things off was...
There was one play, I swear, go back and rewatch this. He hooks White Lotus, and then the Alistar goes for the counter engage, and he flays him out of his headbutt. It's those little plays that, you know, like Irene's saying, don't show up in the stat line, but were the world of difference in why their bot lane was able to keep pressure up the entire time.
And we saw that transition as well into the CS numbers coming in from Sneaky. He had a wild lead at a couple of different points in the game. Felt like he was just a little bit ahead pretty consistently throughout the course of it. But now we look at Lyon Gaming. C9, they seem to be in control. They seem to be driving this series forward. What does Lyon do to step back into this? What has to change?
Well, I like the fact that they took blue side away here. They tried the carry top approach, and we were saying in the pregame to this that they have 2 different ways they can look at it, the carry top or carry bottom. Carry top didn't work. Maybe you don't go completely away from that game plan, but you invest more resources down to your bot side, get the favorable lane matchup, because even though Alistar Trist can all in early on, if you're putting a lot of resources top, your bot lane can't play aggressive, and you saw that they had to see level 3 to the Calista Thresh.
Yeah, and Calista Thresh is that combination that kind of emerged during Rift Rivals, right? It was even throwing Rakan in there too, but that's getting banned away. So the Calista Thresh, they can save each other. So post level 6, it's very hard to make something happen there. And we saw Audi go for some ganks to try and turn that one around. They even like lane swapped out of it, but it's still proving a little bit futile there in terms of like what you can actually do against that lane. So I feel like Calista making it through is a bit of a mistake here, but since they're swapping sides, maybe they're saying Cloud9 have to ban it this time.
And I just want to know what the priority is going to be now coming in and changing sides, if they actually want to take that Calista, if that's the style they want to play, or if they're going to continue to invest early into the top side of the map to try to shut down Impact.
I assume C9 will stay for most of the game plan, throw a lot of those bans up around the top side, and they are totally comfortable taking the Tristana themselves. I'm sure C9 would play either side of this matchup to a degree. Maybe they don't want to completely give up the Calista because we saw White Lotus get a pentakill on it, so that's still a little risky, but I don't mind the idea of C9 going for a very similar game plan.
All right, we'll see what the adaptation is. Cloud9 struck the first blow. We're going to see if Lyon Gaming can fight back in Game 2. The series continues right after this break.
Doesn't have his jump away, remember, Impact flash into the hook shot. They may just be able to find this kill. Audi with the flash, Impact goes down. Contract still staying on the front line. Smoothie gonna be looking for more now as well. Ignite down onto Gentex. There comes your body slam. Impact may have found himself in not an ideal situation. Gonna be stunned up underneath the turret and outplayed. Impact goes down.
Oh, but here comes the reinforcements.
Sneaky grabbing the kill onto Audi, manages to save Smoothie as well. Gentex not going to be the target as Impact finds his way onto Jarrell yet again. Jensen grabbing the kill on that one. The Hextech ultimatum is issued, but immediately canceled as Sneaky finds the Rampage and the double kill. Welcome back for Game 2 of Lyon Gaming versus Cloud9. This best-of-5 series started off in an explosive fashion for Cloud9, finishing the game even faster than their incredibly fast average game time so far in Worlds 2017, and really looking to make a statement here in the eliminations.
And it started so slow, but they were able to ramp it up incredibly quickly. You give Cloud9 anything and it feels like they won't slow down their tempo at the very least. They choose how fast the game plays out and how quickly they win on Summoner's Rift. When you look at Lyon, their opponents, I mean, they've got a lot to change between games 1 and 2 because it evidently was not enough.
I mean, you look at Lyon and you look at their performance in the play-in group stage, and you saw a team that was good at team fighting, that was good at micro, and the macro felt a little not so there.
That's where they lost.
Yeah, and then the elimination stage, they go into it, and it's like they recognize their mistake. They were like, you know, macro's the problem. Let's focus on macro. Here we go. And then they do the macro, but where's the team fighting? Where's the micro? And it seems like Lyon's struggling to have their cake and eat it too.
They boot camped, they tried so hard, you know, all they did was macro. They fixed the problem, but ultimately, yeah, they've lost the other parts while they were getting all that macro down. And that to me is ultimately the difference. You know, when we watched Lyon play against Team WE, maybe they did lose in the macro, but they had like a 7-kill mid lane, they had a 5-kill Cogmore running around on Summoner's Rift. That could maybe win a team fight just because of the champions they chose. This time around, no kills on either of them, not even an assist. They just did absolutely nothing because they weren't allowed to by Cloud9. I feel like what you do if you're Lyon is have that early presence on more than just Oddie. He played out of his mind well, but it was just him.
I mean, you look at these carries in Seiya and White Lotus that I was talking about, that I was so impressed with during the group stage because of their incredible KDAs they were putting up, because of the fact that they minimized deaths and had really solid positioning. And their score lines at the end of game number 1 were 0-1-0 for Seiya. He died in his own fountain at the end of the game. And 0-0-0 for White Lotus, which is not where you want to be in terms of your score line at the end of a game.
Nope, and not if you want to have early presence as a team, get the early advantages over Cloud9. They also did choose to attack the top lane. I feel like this game they might default back to the team fighters in the top side and bring the pressure back down towards the bottom side of the Rift. It's proven to be a bit more successful against a team like Cloud9 when you can get that lane rolling.
We'll have to see what kind of changes they make, because something obviously has to be switched up. You can't just go into game number 2 with the same plan that you had in game number 1, because game number 1's plan did not work. Nope, it was not in line. It seemed like they were keeping up, but keeping up was all that they were doing for a while. Cloud9 appeared in the driver's seat for the entirety of that one, and now we'll see what happens as Lyon Gaming has elected to take blue side here in game number 2. So with the side switch, maybe that'll bring up some different strategies as they ban out Rakan, Gnar, and Galio. Cloud9 responds by banning out Braum, taking Kalista off the table. They picked it last time. They're saying, nope, Lyon, you don't get to do that this time. They got one more.
I guess the question is, Sejuani is always an option. Jarvan is always going to be another one that they could look towards. And do they want to get rid of those champions when they're on the red side and they could pick more of them than just Lyon, who get the choice of one? Not going to be the case.
Nope, they take the Jace out of there. A potential pick for both Jural and Seiya, but they won't let them have it, and they will give that Jarvan over to Lyon Gaming, first pick.
And what I like about this from Cloud9 with the target band is that, yes, you will give over the J4, but you'll have champions for yourself to pick. Xayah's always going to be great. There's no Rakan for it, however, and they don't necessarily have to pick their jungler here if they don't want. It could be something like the Alistar just to have a strong 2v2, and it could be something that controls the 2v2 in laning. They have a pretty good eye in on what their opponents are going to be picking, but if they really want to, they can still take away the champion that Oddie was destroying Summoner's Rift on. Still is that 100% pick ban champion in the Sedge.
Contract's thinking about keeping that number where it is, hovering the Sejuani for now to go along with that Xayah. Xayah, obviously, like any other AD carry, benefiting from having a nice, strong front line in front of her to soak all that damage and allow her as much firing time as possible. And Contracts will just drain the clock out here as he waits for this pick and does end up locking it in.
Yeah, so he'll be locking in the Sejuani. We still don't know which role Lyon's Jarvan is going to be going into. I'm sure we'll find that one out soon enough as we wait for them to stop hovering the monkey and make their decisions. Now, you still expect the bottom lane, I would feel like, to be picked this time around from Lyon, and the Alistar Tristana is still the lane you'd be looking at unless they want to change things up.
Maybe one day we'll actually get to see one of these troll picks locked in. I'm just waiting. I always brace myself on that 1% chance that you actually do see the monkey locked in, but no monkey business today. Instead, it's just Varus picked up by Lyon Gaming, and the Tristana that they had last time was open, but they opted not to go with it. Want to try the Varus this time, switch things up a bit.
You'd say a bit more lane control from the Varus from a distance, where you don't necessarily have to trade with your opponents. And Xayah does love having a good trade-off when you stand there and try and proc the satchel. She will just get all the feathers out in the world as they've locked in their top laner as well. So they've revealed their hand early, and we have left supports completely bare.
And it looks like Cloud9 will respond to that big old tanky top laner with a big old tanky top laner of their own. Perhaps the biggest and tankiest top laner of all, considering he does get huge depending on how many enemies you are able to eat by the end of the game. Cho'Gath locked in.
That's the case, so they'll get the Cho'Gath. Now, he does have kill threat still for one of the tanks that you lock in. Cloud9 will be very happy about exactly that fact, where you've got the Maokai for Giral. And look, he is a great Maokai player. Someone that will be able to do a lot of work with it. His team fighting awareness, his teleports will all be great, but he doesn't have the same kill threat that the Cho'Gath will have. So that's ultimately the dynamic we're going to have to explore here. The mid laner of Lyon may want to do a fair amount of damage.
I always enjoy, and by enjoy, I mean kind of scratch my head and wonder a little bit, when you watch a Cho'Gath team fight and you see all the players on the enemy team really skirting around the edge of that fight at 75% HP or so until you see the Cho'Gath ulti go off, because they know how much damage that thing does, and they know they're within kill threat of it with that and a little bit more damage. So I enjoy watching a Cho'Gath player find the right targets and be able to just hit them in that instant that they're not paying attention.
Watching the tanks also hang off his big void spikes, trying to stop him from moving forward, but they can't.
Especially if the Cho'Gath gets full-size 12 stack. Why is he so massive, Cho'Gath? But back into the draft as we're seeing it now. The bans in the second phase here. Alistar and LeBlanc banned out by Cloud9. Lyon Gaming responding by getting rid of the Rise, just like last time, as well as the Thresh.
Now, the Syndra Orianna is still there. Of course, one being hovered at the moment, actually just going to be locked in. So they do a very similar draft style to that of Lyon in the last game through their second ban and pick phase. And now the question to me is, what does Lyon want to play into that Syndra? They could be the Echo type of team. They could play something like the Corki that can build the Hex Drinker, but Orianna is the matchup we saw last game.
I mean, the Orianna worked out really well when Jensen played it. Can Xayah play the same matchup? And we get to see it. It's Christmas on Summoner's Rift, Rusty. I love these situations. You get to see the matchup from both sides. You get to see the players switch, and you get to see who truly knows the matchup better.
It's ultimate skill matchup time, Captain Flowers. That's the name of the game in mid lane. And still the rest of the team compositions to be devised. The very makeshift bottom lane, I think it's fair to say, from Lyon.
Just piecing it together a little bit here, and Varus and Lulu together. I mean, you've got some range, you've got some poke. Lulu can protect the Varus if he gets jumped on.
I think the Lulu's a denial from Sneaky and Smoothie, trying to prevent the strongest, lane dominant and lane pressure based 2v2, something that can diffuse the pressure that a Varus has. So Smoothie's going to go for the second best version of a Lulu.
Smoothie saying, you want an Ardent Sensor champ? I'm going to show you an Ardent Sensor champ. Picking up that Janna, one of the best users of that item that has been so strong and so prolific in the meta for the past few patches. And we'll see him on it here. Provides a lot of peel power, along with the fact that, I mean, Sneaky on the Xayah, that's a champion that you don't normally like running into anyway because of the stuns and the disengage from the ulti, and Janna just makes it worse.
Yeah, we've seen Sneaky play it in this tournament once already and was incredible. He was making some big plays, diving people, utilizing a lot of skills that Mystic has been showing everybody on Summoner's Rift. The fact that you can use your Blade Caller, you can flash, and you can redirect all of the feathers as well. There's a lot of cool mechanics on Xayah. Sneaky seems to know them all. And he's also got that Janna supporting him that you mentioned into a Varus. So fairly equal when you look at the range of the auto attacks against one another, but the spell weaving could be the difference.
And I'm happy to say that you were right coming into this champion select, Rusty, about how the top laners are picking more of those team fighters this time around. You just have very similar squads from both teams. You got a hard-hitting mid laner, you got a solid auto-attacking AD carry, you've got a supporty support, and you've got two giant meatballs rolling ahead of all of them, colliding into each other, and it's just going to be these front-to-back 5 versus 5 battles.
In a roundabout way, there were similar compositions in Game 1, but Cloud9 dismantled them. Coming into Game number 2, you have to feel like the odds are still stacked against Lyon. But as you mentioned, the compositions share a lot of similarities. And so the first place you'll always be directing your attention is Oddie's early jungling.
And we come into these best of 5s, and we talked at the start about the adaptation, right? We said that was one of the big names in best of 5. One of the other big names in best of 5. That's actually, I'm going to interrupt my own self.
Let's go, girls.
That's pretty cool. That's a pretty cool Star Guardian animation right there. But one of the other things that we always try to keep in mind, along with the adaptation between the games, is the mental fortitude of the players, right? You come off of a loss like that, if you're Lyon, you got to make sure you're keeping your head in the game, keeping yourself from tilting, and just being ready to go into this game saying, okay, forget about the last one, new game now, let's have our solid strategy ready to go.
Don't be the direwolves. Don't lose to Cloud9 until it's a best of 5 this time around. Lyon, I actually don't expect them to be in any way mentally affected by game number 1. You'd have to imagine if you were Lyon coming into this best of 5, it's an upset if you win. That's just the way that everybody in the world will be looking at this best of 5 series. And I'm sure Lyon, they'll come in with high hopes and high expectations of themselves, but they won't ultimately be disappointed. So they'll be able to bounce back, reassess what went wrong in game number 1, come into game number 2 with guns blazing and try and, fix those problems.
Jensen stepping out of the way of Seiya's command attack, finding some damage of his own with the Thunderlord's proc, and these guys aren't even willing to wait for the minion.
No, they're not.
We watched them last game just blow their entire combos on each other as everybody else was playing for turrets and objectives, and it looks like this game's going to be the same damn thing.
They've got a point to prove against one another, it feels like. Jensen's really trying to beat him around as White Lotus and Genthix, they're just 2v3. They just want to stop this blue buff. They want to damage the 2v2 of Sneaky and Smoothie. Pests, get out.
They're trying to remind Cloud9 how bad it feels to have your blue buff invaded on constantly. Contracts goes ahead, drops the smite there to make sure that
look at Oddie.
Nothing happens.
He knows
Lord.
exactly where the jungler of C9 is.
Is Oddie actually going to find Contracts here? Is he going to steal away the frog? Goes for Contracts. Contracts trying to grab himself the frog, but he's not even able to get it. Tries to flash away and does get there, but losing out on that camp means Oddie's ahead.
And that is so dangerous for Contracts. It puts Oddie ahead by a decent amount of experience. He's going to be able to go back to the Raptor camps, and he should be perfectly fine for this now. Also, the flash being gone is the biggest win of all, and I really respect that Oddie didn't use the flash of his own. It shows good communication between Lyon Gaming's bottom lane and their jungler to say that Smoothie was on the way. Smoothie has heal, has shield. It's not worth flashing after that one and potentially dying. And so he just walks away and takes the advantage.
And honestly, that's a good thing to point out. Smoothie is on the heal this game while Sneaky has the barrier for himself. So a very defensive summoner spell combination between these two compared to the more traditional heal plus the ignite on Genthix for honestly pretty much the most aggressive combo you can go for in the bot lane unless you wanted to do some really cheesy stuff, putting an exhaust and an ignite together. But Cloud9 making sure that they're keeping Sneaky protected as much as possible. Impact moves up, fires off the Scryer's Bloom, takes the Blast Cone right back to lane.
Really good from Impact. He'll be able to spot out Oddie as he arrives towards the Gromp and perhaps the blue buff, depending on, you'll be able to see him just barely there. And just knowing where he's going to be, when he's going to be there. Most importantly, Impact pushing top lane to be able to do all of that, unimpeded by any means. Gives time for Contracts to try and just get to level 3, catch up, maybe just stop Oddie from ganking until the level 6 mark where ultimates are there. It's still a big win for Cloud9 overall because they just want to keep farming. However, that problem that you mentioned, the ignite that exists in the bottom lane, it starts to add up to CS differences. It starts to add up to lane control, just pressure in general that a Lulu will have with that Varus. Sneaky and Smoothie may need some help.
White Lotus and Lyon are really happy to see things looking this way, especially after the last game where the lane quickly found itself going in the favor of Sneaky and Smoothie. We talked about how quickly they built up those CS leads and how it was part of the reason why it seemed like although Lyon was matching Cloud9, Cloud9 was just running away with the game anyway. Nice damage there from Jensen onto Seiya, but now he's going to have to deal with Oddie wanting to show up here in the mid lane. Runs down through the bottom part of the river towards his own jungler instead. Oddie and Seiya obviously realize something is up, so they don't want to go in on that one.
They don't realize this, though.
Oddie does have the level advantage over Contracts.
I don't think Contracts wants to outright 1v1 him. He's looking for the counter gank through the tri-bush. Smoothie and Sneaky, I don't actually know what Contracts was achieving there. He just blast coned on the spot. Here we go.
Okay, Oddie face checks the brush. Contracts getting some damage down there. Finds himself a stun. Oddie with the flag and drag over the wall to keep himself safe as now the counterattack begins. Lyon Gaming looking to find something here potentially on to Sneaky. He's got the barrier to keep himself healthy.
Very awkward trade coming out of both of these lanes. Sneaky uses the barrier, White Lotus uses the heal, and so ultimately it's just a trade of summoner spells. And the reason Contract's even able to be aggressive onto Oddie with a level disadvantage is because he has the jump and he has the Janna nearby. So he's able to chunk him, force Oddie to disengage, and by Oddie having to disengage, he couldn't go in and go forwards when the rest of Lyon regrouped and wanted to.
But Cloud9, they just get to regain some control down the bottom lane, push it in, maybe get a base in.
Which is exactly what you were talking about earlier, right? You were saying maybe Cloud9 needs some help in this bottom lane. Contracts delivers it. It gives some breathing room to these guys, if nothing else, and allows them to keep this lane in an acceptable state. But Lion's going to do everything in their power to stop this back from being efficient.
They stopped the recalls, definitely a good decision. It was on a cannon wave as well, so Cloud9 would have played that one out perfectly if they were allowed to go back to base, but they weren't. And so the lane continues, the pressure continues. Sneaky has limited mana to the point where they will lose this lane, they will get pushed in, and Contracts, even with the smallest amount of help he was able to provide to them, unfortunately doesn't change the state of that bottom lane, but Sneaky's still farming fine.
Speaking of farming fine, the top lane also even between these guys. Mid lane pretty much even. Honestly, the biggest CS discrepancy we see is in the jungle, but that one's kind of not really as much of a discrepancy as you would think usually, considering the value of the camps. Yeah, you can have 10 for Krugs or 1 for a Grom, but there is a gold lead there for the Jarvan of almost, actually over 300 compared to his counterpart in the Sedge.
Yeah, taking the Grump away super early, having tempo to get the second camp of the Raptors is pretty much the entirety of all of that. So he's doing very well for himself, compliments of what they did at level 1. Oddie does seem to like these level 2 plays with early cheese.
Contracts down nearly a full level compared to Audi as well, so not just gold but experience going the way of the Lyon Gaming jungler. Sneaky and Smoothie trying to trade while the Jonas shield holds, but still finding themselves at a disadvantage here against this combo of the Varus and Lulu.
And you can't take away my blue buff this time is basically the name of the game. We'll take it away from you. They've got tempo, they've got control of mid lane, enough to get Saya free, enough to give him the blue buff. And perhaps it really is as simple as saying the Orianna in the matchup is the one who gets the blues now.
Could be the way to see it. Contract still only level 5. Trying to continue farming up, get himself caught up with what he lost earlier. Audi halfway to level 6. Both these junglers have those big impact level 6 abilities that truly make the ganks that much more effective, that much scarier. Almost going to be guaranteed to force a summoner spell out with either one of them or just get the kill outright. Lyon Gaming, this time, Rusty, the game's still 0-0. Nobody's dead yet, but they're the ones with the slight gold lead.
They certainly are, and a lot of that still revolves through the bottom lane. Being able to recall and get that 20 CS advantage again. The fact that C9 couldn't go to base results in all of this happening, and suddenly Summoner's Rift looks like a much happier place to be if you're Oddie and Saya. Almost reminiscent of what happened in game number 1 on the blue side when Cloud9 were playing this. They push and they have the free ability to leave the lane. Well, the shoe's on the other foot, and the question's now going to be, can Lyon continue and try and find some kills, try and find some mid-game macro control over Summoner's Rift that was decent from them in game number 1.
Right, do we get to see the Lyon Gaming macro from game number 1, as well as the Lyon Gaming team fighting potential that we saw during the group stage against WE? If both of those Lyon Gamings can show up together, this team could be a force to be reckoned with.
And the shoe is very much on the other foot. Saya's going back-to-back blue buffs. It's not just about taking it away from C9, because they start with taking it away from Cloud9. Jensen doesn't get it, and so he doesn't have control of mid lane. They are able to clear, able to get 2 back-to-back blue buffs. Big wins for Lyon. Unfortunately, these big wins aren't worth monetary value. It's just control of Summoner's Rift.
Contracts moving up into the top side here, wanting to creep through those lane brushes, potentially set up a bit of a trap against Jural, who throws a sapling into the river brush. Now Contracts makes his way onto Jural, seeing if they're able to find the burst here. The stun, where's the feast? Jural wanting to get himself away, pops off the Nature's Grasp. The Sejuani ulti comes through. Impact wants to get a big old bite out of him, but can't quite do it. First blood goes to Jural. Cloud9 with the mistake.
Really big mistake coming out of Impact to follow that one through. He had no chance of getting the kill once the flash was out from Jural. That's so tragic as well.
That was just poorly executed from Cloud9's top laner. You could tell he was hesitating as soon as the Nature's Grasp was fired off. He was thinking, okay, we got as much as we were going to get, but then he goes further.
And they both hesitate. Contracts gets in, it was great. Impact, they do a lot of damage, but Jural gets just enough time to use the W, to dodge out on the feast, disengage, and from this point, they hesitate, they turn around and say, no, I can kill, but Q cooldown, it's always going to be there. Minions are what provides the kill in the end. Contracts isn't able to help secure that by any means because Impact just oversteps his boundaries. Looks like just a poor decision.
White Lotus eating a lot of damage in this bottom side from Sneaky and Smoothie. Both AD carries dropping down to about half, popping those potions to get themselves back up, as we do see the rotations coming bot side. Lyon Gaming bringing both
Teleport
jungler
in as well.
and mid laner, as well as the top laner now with the TP. Sneaky's in some trouble, likely going to be dropping here. No way to escape the 1 versus 5. Saya grabs the kill, and Lyon Gaming is off to the races.
And they've got everybody down here in the bottom lane. The turret's theirs. It's the first turret in the game. And Lyon get themselves a 2,000 gold lead. Just capitalizing on, once again, control of the middle lane, control wards through all of the river. They will go straight towards this Drake, so the opportunity to trade structures is always going to be an opportunity for C9. Because Contracts was on the bottom side of the rift, that's not even going to happen.
Lyon grabbed themselves 2 kills. They get the turret. Now they've got the Drake. It's Cloud, so they're not going to get much extra power out of it, but it will give them extra rotational advantage to make more plays like this.
And teleporting to the flags, very classily done. Once again, Oddie forces the flash out of Smoothie early. So Smoothie now has nothing to keep Sneaky alive. Oddie forces him to disengage. Lulu uses the ult on herself, very close to killing Oddie, still compliments of the turret, but they all survive and it's all good in the end.
And what was the conversation about at the top of the day, Rusty? Can Lyon set the Cloud9 bottom lane behind and find victory through that? And it looks like this game they're doing it.
And Cloud9's top lane are helping themselves to being a little bit behind if we're going to draw the comparison as well.
That's a fair point. That's a fair point. I don't think anybody could argue that one against you. Impact, I'm sure, fully aware of exactly how that happened. Not too happy with it himself, but it's only one death.
You are correct in saying that getting the bottom lane behind is the name of the game. We've seen it work to a degree of success, and we said that Lyon, perhaps a better team than those who have played against T9 already in the group stage, to put them in deficits. Well, can they carry that part through? Because the gold lead, it doesn't stand out as anything substantial. It's about if they can now upset the tempo of the map through the small advantages they have. Well, they've lane swapped, they've started to try it.
I like what you saw in the bottom lane there a couple moments ago. Jaral went down there, used the ultimate to clear the wave away, to slow the push from Sneaky and Smoothie, to buy his own guys time, to equalize everything up here in the top side, and it looks like they will do just that. It's going to be 2 turrets now for Lyon Gaming.
It will be traded, you'd have to imagine, on the bottom side. Sneaky and Smoothie have had an abundance of time down there just to continue to push, just to continue to pressure. So ultimately, that is a trade, but it opens the map up so much more.
Saya taking a lot of damage here from Jensen. Barely walks away from the ult.
Just another day in the mid lane offense, except for this.
Oh, Jensen now going to be dunked. The power of the jungle coming in once again for Lyon Gaming.
And this time, Lyon are the team that have the reinforcements arriving. Contracts is forced out of the jungle even though he gets the red buff. And mid lane pressure is there to be secured.
Can Lyon grab themselves turret number 3? This is the most important of those outer turrets. Gives the most access to the enemy jungle, but it looks like it will be stopped by Cloud9 for now, but that thing's barely clinging to life.
Yeah, still not a lot of health on that mid lane outer turret. Saya had no resources left after this trade to be able to continue to push or pressure a following team fight. Just another day in the mid lane offense between Jensen and Saya. Have just got some personal beef apparently, going at one another constantly, but they took the top lane outer turret, and instead of recalling and resetting, they roamed mid. Really good awareness out of Lyon, knowing exactly where they wanted to be, and how kind of Jensen to, unfortunately for him, set them up for it.
And I mean, they even gave the kill over to White Lotus. That couldn't have gone better for Lyon. Exactly what they wanted to be doing. Blade of the Ruined King will be online for that Varus here very, very soon. And considering Sneaky Xayah is a bit behind and also going for an expensive item in the Essence Reaver, Varus is going to be stronger faster.
He certainly is. Rushing the Berserker Greaves to match the move speed of Sneaky as well. But once he gets that Blade of the Ruined King, once he splashes to that one item, not needing the Zeal item afterwards as well like Sneaky does, well, then they can immediately look towards objectives. They've got the Rift Tower as a big point of contention that I would say should be free to take if C9 don't start rotating up. They are right now, though.
Cloud9 finding themselves on the back foot now. Have to see how well this team plays. Remember, you mentioned it earlier, there was one game that we got to see Cloud9 actually in some trouble in the early game during the play-in group stage. That was up against the Dire Wolves.
Yeah.
Things looked very sketchy for a while, but like you said, it was 15 minutes of Cloud9 losing and then 12 minutes and they destroy the enemy Nexus. So You've got to make sure that you're keeping your game tight if you're Lyon Gaming here. You cannot give those opportunities over to Cloud9 to come back into the game. That's one thing Lyon's actually really good at in their own region, is preventing opponents from snowballing with a lead. Now they've got to make sure that they don't allow Cloud9 to do the same.
That's definitely the case, of course, while stretching your own lead at the same time as they're going on Jensen.
Jensen again going to be found out. White Lotus cashing in for the second time onto the Cloud9 mid laner.
Just gets completely blasted. When you have no flash against the Jarvan, there is really no way to escape, no one to keep you alive in that situation when all of the damage from Lyon is starting to come online. And suddenly this turret is in jeopardy. It will go down. Look at C9 on the map. They're just going to try and trade. Lyon should just keep pushing. Sneaky needed to recall.
I mean, Lyon's 4 strong here in the mid lane. There's no reason to stop. They've already taken the tier 1, going on to the tier 2. Sneaky dedicated to grabbing this tier 1 on the top side, but that is not a worthwhile trade.
No, and he's going to get it very late. There should be enough time for Lyon even to look at a Rift Herald or just recall, reset, spend all of their money, and then go back to that Herald. Cloud9 have all of the vision control in the world that they need, but vision control doesn't save a mid lane turret when they don't want to defend it, it seems.
Lyon is 4-0 with a 2-turret lead, including a tier 2 that they just traded for a tier 1, and they're up 2,500 gold. This team is looking so much better than they did in game number 1.
They certainly do. It feels like they've warmed up. They got the jitters completely removed. They shook them off. It was something that we actually said they might want to do.
Yeah.
Done it.
Well, I'm glad they followed our suggestion.
Thank God.
Lyon wanting to make sure this is a series. They really want to find that spot in the main event, the main group stage there at Worlds. But first, they do actually have to win 3 of these games against Cloud9, which is a pretty tall order, but they're on their way to it right now. Contracts, though, will secure the Rift Herald for the side of Cloud9, so that's one objective that they will manage to keep under their own control, not concede over to the side of Lyon Gaming.
Yeah.
So speaking of those neutral objectives, though, next one going to be spawning here in 5 seconds with another Cloud Drake. We'll have to see how the teams prioritize this.
Contracts just stopped his recall to do Wolves because he's got the bottom lane nearby. Seemingly aware of this. Contract just doesn't actually care. That's a very awkward interaction.
Want these Wolves.
Lyon actually on the other side of the rift without their AD carry placing vision as well. So right now a lot of the vision game seems to be how we're playing this on out, but neither team with an effort towards killing the person that's placing the vision.
Impact just eats that big old grump. Not really too concerned about Adi stealing that one away. Lyon starts up the Cloud Drake. Cloud9, do you want to contest this one? They've got Impact on the front line there.
He has
Nearly
no
3,000
ultimate,
HP.
Makes you wonder if that's something that Cloud9 do want to fight for when Impact doesn't have the ultimate there. The threat to kill the carry starts to dwindle as a result. Shockwaves can win an entire team fight themselves now that he's got the Haunting guys as well. Compliments of not going towards the Sork shoes, needed the Merc.
And Cloud9 knows that all too well. Cloud9 has won a lot of games of their own off of Jensen hitting big shockwaves when the team was behind. So they won't have that tool in their own arsenal this game. Adi running away here from Contract, gets himself stunned up. Contract just walks back out before he gets collapsed on by the bottom lane from Lyon.
They weren't far away. At a moment's notice, Lyon could have been there, but Adi also now, once again, we're doing the vision game. That is the most important part here. Summoner spells are all up and available, and so very difficult to make the place unless Contracts just walks
Contracts with some interesting jungle pathing there, not able to charge himself over the wall. Good body blocked by Adi. Tries to flash, but Giral is right there with the Nature's Grasp to make sure they find the kill. Adi just says the hell with it and jumps back over the wall with the flash, and Lyon goes towards the Cloud Drake.
Yeah, and it's going to be a free Cloud Drake. Contracts not too sure what he was planning by walking into all of them where they don't have vision. You can see the wards right there. Pretty clear that he doesn't know where they are.
Just seems disrespectful from Cloud9, honestly.
I'm honestly not sure if it was just a misclick.
One of the two. It was either disrespectful or it was a misclick. Because in most situations, this is not the path you take.
I wonder where they are there. Oh God. It's probably the team comms there.
The inner monologue?
that's it. Inner monologue. Auto attack was going to kill him, but Adi ults for safety and then realizes that he has to flash because it wasn't safe after all. But it's still a nice pick. 2 Cloud Drakes going over to the side of Lyon. They are well and truly set up in this game, but the gold hasn't grown. They got a pick.
Nope.
They got the Drake. Drake's not worth money. There's still a Rift Herald on contract, so there's a chance they can break the mid lane outer turret if they look towards it as a big objective.
And And this is starting to resemble a bit of what we saw from Lyon during the play-in group stage, where they would win the fights, they would find the picks, they would put themselves in a good spot, but they weren't building the same kind of leads that you would see from teams like WE, like Cloud9, like Fnatic when they got ahead, where it's like, okay, now this lead's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger until the game ends. Lyon takes more time to make those leads into something truly game-ending. Right now, Cloud9's trying to equalize a bit of that gold, but Shelly doesn't do much of anything.
You'll take it though if you're Cloud9. A big chunk of damage done onto the mid lane structure means that they can take it down with any stray minion wave that Lyon forget to go towards. That was the blue buff spawn where Saya disappeared and they were able to spawn the Herald in the first place. And now they hang around. I don't know if they can make this play, but it feels like they really want it.
All right, they're going to start things off. Sejuani ulti down onto Adi, and Jensen finds himself the kill. Cloud9 finally on the board, and they take the tier 1 turret down along with it.
Big choice to just kill Adi, and I quite like that. Very reserved from C9. They don't want a team fight. They just want to try and get the goal back going for them. Any macro plays they can make, picking number mismatches effectively on Summoner's Rift, and utilizing, most importantly, their very good vision control that they have been placing absolutely everywhere throughout this game. From the moment they started losing, they just placed wards everywhere they could.
Very defensive strategy, working out to staunch that bleeding a bit, right? You can fall behind, but as long as you don't fall drastically behind, there's always that opportunity to come back. You can always bank on a big team fight later. We've talked about how Lyon Gaming showed some impressive team fighting during the play-in group stage, but Cloud9 is also a team that has had a history of team fighting their way out of tough situations in the past.
And it's very easy to play that game plan if you look at Lyon and their past track record just in the play-ins tournament as it stands right now. They get ahead early, the mid-game was shaky, and so if you just play strong mid-game like Team WE did, well, there's a very low chance that Lyon know how to react accordingly to grow those gold leads to get themselves into the winning position. They're at the cusp of it, and suddenly the gold's now 1,000 from what was 2,000. Could have been 3 if they were the ones making the play, but it's not the case. All of the mid lane outers are gone. The mid lane inner is gone. They should be able to push up, get vision in C9's side of the map, but they can't. They're not. In fact, Cloud9 have majority of the vision control.
You know, honestly, that gold lead you're talking about, if you look at where the gold is actually allocated, the top and the jungle, the front lines for these teams, very, very close. The bottom lane actually evens out as White Lotus is 1,000 gold, well, 1,500 now ahead of Sneaky, while Genthix is a similar amount behind Smoothie. But then if you look at the mid lane, it's Saya with a significant lead over Jensen. That's been shrunk a little bit now, but he's still got the lead over the guy who is normally the star player for Cloud9.
That's a coin feeling, if ever I've seen one as well. Rushing the Ardent Sensor, usually the name of the game, but in this case, they can upgrade their sight stones. They've got all the money and income coming in for Smoothie. And as laning phase dissipates for Genthix, he's not going to be auto-attacking everybody nearly as much, so he won't be earning the same amount of gold. However, you do have that big AD carry in White Lotus. He's going to have a QSS, so very difficult to kill, honestly, at this stage. And when he's got the frontliners, yes, they're equal. Still a Maokai and a J4 who's building relatively tanky. Knight's Vow to keep him alive. How do you get to the Varus?
Worth pointing out that Maokai tanky with the Righteous Glory and the Spirit Visage. Righteous Glory also up on the Cho'Gath, who has completed his Gargoyle Stone Plate. Means not only is he that much tankier, but his Feast also has that extra damage multiplier that makes it that much more deadly if he finds his way onto one of those squishy targets, or even to execute one of the tanks, like what we saw into Audi.
And he just straight rushed that as well. The game plan from Impact. We have seen some Cho'Gaths go towards Adaptive Helms, maybe 3rd or 4th item. We've seen some not go Gargoyle Stone Plate at all, but he wants to kill those carries. He wants to get in. And here we go.
Here we go. Fight going to be breaking out. Onto the front line goes Contracts, throws down the ulti, not finding anybody with the stun. Immediately Smoothie getting himself rooted up by the ulti from the Varus, as now Geralt makes his way into the thick of things. Going to be Wild Growth, but immediately flashes his way out of it. Sneaky now finding the opportunity to fire onto some isolated targets. Shockwave not going to be coming up big this time. Sneaky grabbing the kill onto Geralt as Smoothie looks to refresh the fight with the Janna ultimate. Lyon trying to get themselves out of this when they've lost the fight for now. We mentioned Cloud9's team fighting, and it shows up here.
Dural goes very deep by himself. Impact still had the ultimate at the end of this fight as well. The carry threats. How do you get in when Cho'Gath threatens killing you? And when the Shockwave misses, which was smartly played by Cloud9 to dodge it, well then a lot of the team fighting capabilities starts to go away for Lyon. Well played team fight from Cloud9, but it was capitalizing on the over-aggression from Dural, who wanted to go forwards, use the Righteous Glory at a time where
his team probably couldn't follow him up, and that was the case. They were zoned away the second they tried to get it as well. Smoothie is just a machine.
Take a look at exactly how it all went down here. Got our camera angle zooming into the river as the two teams collide.
And Lyon evidently want to go for this fight. White Lotus has used the ultimate. He traps a lot of people in place. But Dural goes in here, flashes away as Lulu ults him, and then Sneaky's just got free reign on both of them with Jensen. They're in trouble. Flash from the shockwave as well. And then watch Smoothie as White Lotus wants to come in and do damage. Just chucks them all out and says, not today. Team fight's already ours.
And that victory also affords Cloud9 enough presence on the map to grab the third Drake of the game, keep Lyon from getting that 3 Cloud Drakes to nothing advantage, giving them a ridiculous 75 move speed. Now it's 50 compared to 25 out of combat, of course. Much easier to digest comparison.
Everyone's moving quickly, though. That's the name of the game.
Everybody's sped up.
We've got a Janna, we've got a Lulu. Orianna even speeds everybody up. We're going super quickly on Summoner's Rift. Cloud Drakes are just going to augment that, especially when we get closer to that Elder Drake time in the game.
And I want to point out, the gold lead has shifted ever so slightly. It's the smallest of leads, but it is in the favor of Cloud9 now, even though they're down in turrets and kills. Now they're looking to start things off here onto Adi, who's going to be saved by the Wild Growth for now. Shockwave finding its way onto Contracts, who's the first casualty of this fight. Impact going to be forced to flash out now as well. It's Cloud9 who commits the sins that Lyon committed last time, and they go too deep.
They certainly do. So Lyon with that one pick, yes, it's only on the Contracts, but that's the jungler at 26 minutes. Baron is always a threat. But look at Cloud9's wards. It doesn't mean that they can just walk into Baron willingly, Lyon, without Cloud9 knowing. So they walk through the jungle back to their middle lane. They'll defend the one place Lyon we're looking at. They get a pick. But what does the pick mean for Lyon, where Cloud9 got a Drake, where they've got the gold lead, they got everything? It looks like they'll try for this.
Going for tier 2. A little bit more damage to burn through here. Impact will do as much as he can to clear the minion wave away. White Lotus going to draw the tower aggro there, but it doesn't really matter that much when you've got the Lulu shield and another wave coming up right after you. Lyon does find their reward for grabbing that pick early.
Playing around the rift, pushing mid lane, rotating the bottom lane. This is what happens when you have side lane control. Lyon were able to just walk back to those minion waves that were prepared earlier. So they get a turret, they bring back that gold lead. We find ourselves in a very close game number 2 here, Captain Flowers.
This is the kind of game I was hoping for this whole series. Contracts firing off the ulti in the replay.
He goes forward, he is the one engaging. That's the difference between the two fights. Shockwave, Jarvan ultimate, it was an awful lot used for just the one member of Cloud9, but they get that pick, and it means that they have to disengage Cloud9, they have to back it up. They did.
Now Cloud9, I jinxed them last time. I said, Cloud9's ahead in the gold. Look at that, Rusty. And sure enough, as soon as I say it, Lyon says nope. But now, Lyon is back in the driver's seat. Let's see how well they do with it. The game is teetering on a knife's edge, though. One small misplay, one minor outplay could tilt this game in either team's favor significantly. We could see that into an avalanche of momentum. Or it could just tilt right back on the other side of the knife. We don't know.
Now, as you get to 28 odd minutes into this game, I absolutely believe that if it is on a nice edge, that one moment means more. It's much more significant. The knife sharper, if we're going to follow with the analogy as well. You got those big team fights. The Baron's always going to be a place of contention. The next Drake's only the Ocean. It's not going to be an Elder.
Yeah, he's not very important, is he?
No, unfortunately for him.
Poor little Ocean Drake. He's pretty cool if you get him the first time. If he's the first Drake to spawn, you grab him early and he's there for the laning phase.
He does a lot for you.
Man, if first Ocean Drake shows up 28 minutes into the game, you're just not very concerned with him at all. He doesn't do anything except add you some extra damage onto your Elder Drake buff, maybe.
What he does do is die so that the Elder can come up afterwards. The most exciting part about a 28-minute Ocean Drake is what's next.
You kill him, you get him out of the way, and you get the next one in there. Speaking of killing stuff to get it out of the way, removing some of the vision now that Cloud9 have placed down around the mid lane. Lyon clears that out as they continue to try to vie back and forth for this positioning here around mid lane. You talked about Baron, how that's always going to be a factor, and right now...
This bush is literally where the game's being decided, it feels like.
Impact going to be the target here by Lyon. Contracts throwing out the ulti onto White Lotus, trying to disengage things here. Nature's Grasp fired off, finds its way only onto Contracts. Impact is isolated by himself. Impact trying to get himself away from this one. Adi now going to be feasted upon. Impact, though, taken low and taken down. White Lotus grabbed himself the killing spree as now Sneaky has to disengage. Dural so tanky with his own Gargoyle Stone Plate. That's another 1 for 0 for Lyon.
So many things were used in this fight except for the Shockwave from Sayer. It is up, it is available.
Oh, they're going right back into it. Jensen forced to flash out. Sneaky looking for the auto attack damage. Jaral on the front line looking to isolate Contracts, pulling him back in. Shockwave gonna drag him further back into the clutches of White Lotus. Contracts walks away. For now, Sneaky still very healthy. White Lotus still full HP. So much on these AD carries. 3-0 and 3 on the Varus, 1-1 and 0 on the Xayah. 3 items completed on both.
Very tense fighting coming out of both of these teams. Sneaky is doing so much work. They caught Jensen out of position, it looked like, but his stun on the back end of that was incredible. Cloud9, they are teleporting in for this. Lyon are going to match it.
What a Baron call by Cloud9. This is the kind of really, really interesting play that can make or break the game. Now Baron's going to be below half HP. Jaral in the front line. Contract's going to be tanking. Jensen needs to back away. Contracts needs to back away. He cannot get out in time.
They're going to go back to the
Lyon
Baron.
has found the Baron leashed for them by their opponents. Cloud9, now they're the ones who have to stop this. Varus ulti misses. Chains of Corruption not finding the mark means a lot of CC not available on the side of Lyon.
Jarrell's still doing the Baron buff as well. This is just the biggest bait of all time. They have to back away. Nobody has anything up and available.
Both sides have to quit. Everyone's out of resources. Everyone's out of momentum. Sneaky backs off to grab himself some creeps, and we all go home. Some of them with a limp.
Thank God. Some dead as well, actually. Contracts is in the death chamber
more
for
than
10 more seconds there. A couple of legs removed, not just a lip. Cloud9, they move over to the Baron buff, and it was an okay idea. They may perhaps thought that Lyon were recalling, but that was a very early teleport out of Jaral. Super good awareness. White Lotus will pick up the kill as he gets ulted, and then back onto the Baron. The problem here is White Lotus actually misses his ult, and that was the engage onto Impact. Now that engage is gone, Sneaky does his relevant damage, and is able to back it up, back away. And this is when they look at each other, they stare each other down, they both just say, nah, we can't do that.
All right, here we go again, Rusty. The fact that we got people hanging around this brush means that we're gonna have a fight. We'll just have to see who ends up going in first. Contracts takes some poke there, and now it's Jaral who gets caught out. Nature's Grasp comes flying through, finds its way onto a couple of different targets. Jensen with no flash, remember, he used it in the last fight. Jaral gonna be the first one down. Shockwave onto Jensen. If they can take him down, that is gonna be huge, but White Lotus now gonna be silenced, knocked up into the air, the damage coming through. The stun lands, but Adi is running interference. Xayah grabbing the kill onto Impact. It's a double kill for Contract.
They sacrifice themselves, though, Lyon, to keep the two carries alive. Xayah and White Lotus are still there. Jensen dead. Cho'Gath dead means the carries, there's not a lot of threat to kill them. It's just Sneaky.
Contracts has Warmogs as well. Look at his health just surging back up. He's going to be ready for a fight should one break out here.
Oh, they want it too. They're not doing Baron, they're baiting.
Oh, Cloud9
but it was a blue
hanging
trinket,
out.
they know.
Nice use of blue trinket there, and you could hear the noise from the piercing arrow also finding its way into someone, but Cloud9 now saying, hey, they got both these blue trinkets in here, they're both disabled. Let's start this up. Make them come in here and fight. Contract showing up, slowing down White Lotus, but good moves coming out from both carries of Lyon to avoid the danger, and they force Cloud9 back.
Yeah, really nice stuff from Lyon. Using the Orianna ball as well for vision to see where the Sejuani will be. There's only one place he could have been, so they back it up and they get out perfectly fine. We get to see how this fight happens. Once again, Jaral caught out of position at the beginning, where they just put him into the bounce house. They crowd control him everywhere. Odi throws himself at Jensen. That's what they're looking at doing. The Maokai was already dead, so from this point, you're like, oh, it's a bit rough. However, Odi goes back forwards, keeps Impact in place so that he will die, and makes sure they can't cover the distance to get to White Lotus. They all understand who the carries are in these games, and they all understand what it takes to protect them.
Look at the damage in the last fight. 5,000 from White Lotus, nearly 6,000 from Sneaky. These two guys are going to determine the outcome of this game on their own, if nothing else. It just comes down to who can get the angles and who can find the DPS.
And this is one of those games against Captain Flowers where you look at the carries from Lyon and it's 2-0-5 for Xayah and it's 5-0-4 for White Lotus. Big carries, neither of them really understand how to die in League of Legends when they're playing this well, because it's just so hard to kill them. The rest of Lyon will stand in front of them as bodyguards every single time.
It's a combination of good positioning and great teamwork. Like you just said, the rest of the team is not afraid to be that bullet sponge for these guys and protect the VIPs. Impact pops the Righteous Glory. They're gonna stomp lumber up there, but he's just a little bit too slow. can't quite get in time. 0-3-5 on this Cho'Gath. Not the most impressive of score lines, but he just needs to be that front line for his own carries. Jensen losing the Banshee's Veil there.
No, don't push up too far, Cloud9. Stay at the bush.
Oh yeah, this is where we have to fight. Everything has to happen at this bush.
Like, everyone's worked that out, but we're all still perfectly okay with it because they fight every single time either way. C9 on a ward. Also, that one ward just placed on the other side of the bush is spotting Contract constantly. And so the inside track also may belong to C9. The knowledge game lies with Lyon.
Cloud9 getting those side lanes pushed out now. Impact to the bottom lane is now Smoothie going to be jumped on. Audi looking to start this fight up. They know Cloud9 is only 3 strong. They're able to find the kill onto 1. Now can they make it 2? Contract's forced to flash over the wall, keeping himself alive, but it's still a 1-for-0 fight going the way of Lyon. Good trigger pull there, recognizing the fact that they had a huge numbers advantage.
5 ultimates used, however, for just the 1 kill onto Smoothie means that as they push in, as they look towards controlling Summoner's Rift for the Baron specifically, I feel like C9 can still walk in. I feel like they can still fight for this, but they've committed. They're doing it.
Baron is at half HP, Rusty. Here we go. Cloud9's got to make their move, but it's already done. Lions have got the objective. Now they might be able to find the attack here onto the rest of Cloud9. Grab it onto Impact. He pops the Stone Plate, has to try to get himself away. Pops the Feast before he dies. Should drop. And Adi puts the flag on the corpse and walks away.
Yeah, everybody's still going to be able to back it up from Lyon as well with the Baron buff on 5 members. So many shields to keep Dural alive. And now they've got the Baron. Now they actually have the capabilities of controlling all of the map through all 3 lanes pushing. And now we find ourselves in this position where C9 actually a bit on the back foot, but they're not. They're just going to push in, apparently.
Flexing their muscles in the enemy jungle, trying to get something out of this, but they may just end up losing their own jungler. Contract's trying to run away, but the Nature's Grasp locks him down and takes him out. Sneaky, not quite having enough damage to return the favor as Cloud9 loses yet another for nothing.
And Lyon still with 5 alive will say thank you and then just go back to base again. Thanks, Contract.
Do their thing, yeah.
What a nice guy. He's able to give them an extra 300 gold. They're teleporting top lane. There's 35 seconds on him. Impact is only just alive, so an extra turret will be theirs.
Lyon grabbing this turret should take them up to over a 4,000 gold lead compared to Cloud9. 37 minutes into the game. It's not the greatest lead, but it is something that they can use to leverage this advantage along with this huge minion wave. Dural and Seiya not stopping. White Lotus and Genthix now brought in as well. Tier 3 demolished.
They've got this. Jensen's not even rotating. He has no mana. He's just going to recall. Free inhibitor for Lyon.
Great moves from Lyon Gaming, out-rotating Cloud9, recognizing the fact that Jensen was vulnerable like that, and free is free.
It certainly is, and of course, we said the mechanics are there from Lyon, but they focused so hard on macro in that first game. Well, now we're seeing both, and it feels like they are a very good side when we have both showing up for them. Still incredible scorelines on both of their carries, an incredible performance so far. And with 1 inhibitor down, and it's on the top side of the Rift, that's the best Elder Dragon inhibitor that you could possibly have.
And full build now up and running for White Lotus. I'm beginning to think with this guy being 6-0-6, having full build, 413 CS at 38 minutes, maybe Jensen should know what his name is. Maybe at this point, you recognize who you're going up against because White Lotus in this game has proved himself to truly be a monster on this Varus pick. He's landed some great chains. He's had some awesome damage throughout multiple team fights. And like we already mentioned, the fact that he hasn't died at all on an 80 carry with no escapes shows he's got his positioning down.
Yeah, and it's a Varus, not like a Xayah, who doesn't really have escapes, but has the ability to outplay with the ultimate.
Right.
Varus, very hard to execute, but he's got the team supporting him. Lyon, they're not going straight towards the Elder Dragon just yet. They're setting up the vision, but most importantly, they're pushing bottom lane.
They're just going straight for this tier 3. White Lotus only needs 1 more auto attack. Already found it. Taking this one down now so they can fight on the inhibitor if they want to. Nothing really there to protect Cloud9, but C9 forces them back. Adi a little bit hurt, needs to regen with that warm-off.
But it is a clever team play once again from the side of Lyon. Blue buff was spawning, they'll be able to pick that up on the way through, and now they control the vision, knowing that C9 can't be in a bush. That there's no way for Cloud9 to be somewhere surprising. They know exactly where they are at every single moment. Now they just need to defend middle lane as C9 push it. It looks like Cloud9 vying for that control back themselves. I like this move.
Cloud9 is not willing to go silently on this one. They won't sit in their base. They're not just going to wait around for Lyon to take the objectives and look to end, but now they're on the retreat. They recognize the fact that they are behind. They've got to respect what Lyon can do as a team. The representatives from Latin America North proving their team fighting capabilities multiple times throughout this game alone, let alone the play-in group stage. Now looking potentially at this Elder Drake. Remember, super minions are
already looking
the top
at it.
part of the base. Saya the target of Contracts. Ulti not really finding a lot there. Now Contracts, the one who's taking a lot of damage. Ulti also coming out from the
It's all zoning. They want to get the Elder.
They're still trying to get it. Redemption comes down. Cloud9 still maybe looking to take the fight, but it's Adi who's able to lock 3 into the pit, as now he's soaking the damage. Impact here on the front line, taking a big bite out of the Jarvan. Finds the kill now as White Lotus gets himself stunned up. More damage coming through. Jensen not quite able to find the kill on that one as Contracts goes for Saya. Not quite able to do it. The heal from the Janna will not be there. White Lotus still trying to take that Elder Drake as Gerald's going to be taken down closely next. Nearly falls. He's alive. To find his way with the twisted advance as Sneaky gets the Elder. Gentek's looking to take the blast cone to get himself away to safety. Cloud9's base is just being absolutely bonked this whole time. They've got to go back and
They're
save it.
so lucky that Sneaky just got the Elder Drake of all things to keep them in this game. But you're right, their base, it is being dismantled by Super Creeps. One of the Nexus turrets is gone. The inhibitors mid lane's being pushed, bottom lane's being pushed. I feel like Lyon, they just got too caught up in the moment, too caught up in the pressure of what C9 were throwing at them. They just needed to not fight for an extra 30 seconds, and the minions might have ended the game for them.
Two team fighting teams playing team fighting comps is a good spectator experience in League of Legends, Rusty. This is so much more entertaining than the first game was, largely just because of these two teams colliding head-to-head, front-to-back comps. It's just coming down to who plays it better, and that time, Cloud9 had the edge.
And it was only a slight edge, to say the least. White Lotus still plays the team fights well. You know, good awareness from Jensen to still get the ultimate onto White Lotus at the end of that, but it wasn't going to kill him because the QSS, the ability to keep himself alive and healthy, auto-attacking the Elder Dragon just to keep that life still going. It's these little details that mean so much at 40-odd minutes into the game when a team fight breaks out. And I feel like they've both got it down. The Sneaky, in this case, I'm going to say got a little bit luckier.
Sneaky with full build now as well, 70% crit. He's got the armor pen, he's got the scimitar. Let's take another look at the fight.
Now, White Lotus, you can see his health. Disregards Jarell's flash, pretend it never happened. Teleport comes in.
He'd like to.
It definitely happened. He almost died for it. But as this happens, just the, it looks like a rapid fire cannon distance proc bonus as well from Sneaky on that auto. Not many people will be able to beat that.
6,461 damage in the last team fight. Sneaky no slouch on the DPS charts, but White Lotus, Saya, and Jensen all not far behind either. Getting to the point of the game where the tanks are not doing a whole lot.
That was a Contract's ultimate onto White Lotus. He used his Mercurial Scimitar. I mean, that's important.
It is a lower cooldown on the Contract's ultimate. It's only 58 seconds on that Sejuani ulti.
Yeah.
Remember, the Mercurial Scimitar is 90, so that gives you a 30-second window approximately.
Well, who needs 30 seconds, Captain Flowers, when you've got an Elder Dragon and a Baron buff up and available?
All right, here we go. Cloud9 forcing the issue. Looks like they would just want to end this game potentially on this Baron team fight. Nature's Grasp fired off, only finds its way onto Contracts. Ball thrown down to zone the rest of Cloud9 away. Baron rapidly regenerating. Contracts will soon be doing the same thanks to Warmogs. Saya hanging around in the brush. Contracts still below half HP, not getting the chance to regen the way he wants to.
And with the inhibitors all up and available for Cloud9, they're able to make plays like this. Minions still not going to pressure in just yet, but you can see it on top and bottom. The side waves still in control of Lyon. It feels like they've got everything going for them. And then mid lane, you've got White Lotus.
White
no
Lotus just
QSS
doesn't care.
though.
He's just pushing up into the mid lane, killing the turret because Cloud9 can't stop him.
And if they do try to stop him, they'll take the Baron. So they're just playing every single area of Summoner's Rift at the same time. They are besting Cloud9, it looks like.
This is being wonderfully played by Lyon. They got the tier 3 turret for free. Cloud9 is now just being led around. Like, I'm seriously impressed with Lyon's ability to do this. There's a lot of times, even in some of the larger regions, where you see teams not be able to lead their opponents around from a macro perspective that way.
And they're back to the Baron buff. It looks like Lions still want to go for this.
Cloud9 trying to go for Audi here, forces him to flash away. Baron still at 1/3 HP.
If they
C9
can't
now
do it,
disengaging from it.
Lions still win the map. Look at top, look at bottom on the mini-map. The minions that are pushing in. Lion just want to not fight and control the mid lane. C9 have to.
Contracts tries to go for the ulti instead, finds it between the goalposts of Seiya and White Lotus. Not what they wanted to see on that with a shockwave coming down onto the Cho'Gath. Impact flashing away. Stun out onto Gerald by
They got Jensen.
Audi goes in, catches him out. Jensen forced to flash. Big Summoner Spell cooldown.
And Cloud9 have to go defend their base. They have no choice. Lion should get a free Baron for this. You're looking at contracts perhaps for the steal. If all of Cloud9 hang around, then they run the risk of losing inhibitors. They're all here except for Impact. He has the teleport.
Oh, this fight's gonna turn real sketchy real quick. Baron down to
doing
one
it.
corner. Cloud9 now finding themselves here in the pit. Impact and Contracts both hanging around. Jensen over the wall as well. Impact grabbing the Secure onto the Baron with the Cho'Gath Feast. But now where does the fight go from here? Sneaky's got to be careful. He can't afford to walk into a shockwave. Contracts on the front line. Gargoyle Stoneplate to keep himself alive a little bit longer. Jensen down below half HP. Impact is still stuck in the pit. He secured the Baron for his team, but he's going to be the sacrificial lamb as the minions pour into the Cloud9 base. They take down the bottom lane inhibitor. The teleport into the top lane. It's 2 inhibs down for Cloud9.
And a big flank from Gerald.
Gerald shows up. He's got very little mana here on the front line. He might be able to lock down Sneaky the Shockwave. Not going to be finding anyone just yet. Sneaky's going to have to find an immaculate amount of damage in this fight. Lyon looking to push up into the Cloud9 base. Gensix gets himself taken out by Jensen. As Gerald barely walks away, Contracts now surviving the damage from White Lotus. 1 dead on the side of Lyon, but they do get the 2 inhibitors thanks to the minions.
Oh Lord. The Baron being taken by Impact, the Elder being taken by Sneaky, all of these little details. The game could have just ended to minions if Lyon got Baron and just walked the Baron buff in. But step 1 still belongs to Lyon. They control the minion waves. The vision is equal between both of them. And ultimately, Lyon still with complete control of Summoner's Rift. The only saving grace is the coordinated Feast and Smite from Contracts and Impact. Look at Seiya controlling the carries of C9. The ball's always just next to them. They want to walk in. They want to do damage. But I mean, they literally cannot. The Shockwave will kill them if they do. So they have to back away. They acknowledge that Impact's dead. And that's the trade that Lions saw, and they said, we can win the game from this exact moment. Close, but not quite.
Cloud9 continues the eternal defense. We're at the point in this game, Rusty, where the gold's not starting to mean a whole lot anymore. And even if it did mean a whole lot, there's only a 2K difference between these two teams after 47 minutes of fighting. Damage dealt total this game, 57,000 from White Lotus, 48,000 from Sneaky, and 31,000 from both mid laners. Honestly, a grand total of only 700 damage difference between the 2 mid laners. These guys just been going, we were joking earlier about how they just go blow for blow back and forth with each other, but man, they are just neck and neck.
I mean, tell me they don't just feel matched when you watch them play as well. Even in game number 1, the difference was the blue buff more than the skill of the player. 7-0-7, the scoreline of the AD carry from Lyon in White Lotus. What a performance from him so far, but it still takes that one more team fight. That's what we're waiting for. Cloud9 will be stuck in their base for this team fight, you would have to imagine. And the mid lane inhibitor is the one thing that Lyon want and need.
Cloud9 will do everything they can to protect it. Obviously, once you lose all 3, that's when the double super minions start pouring in, and that's when the defense just becomes a full-time job. C9 will do anything in their power to prevent that from happening. Elder Drake not up for spawn just yet, so this is pretty much the name of the game right now.
And you're seeing the patience from Lyon as well, waiting for the super minions to push into the base. Once bottom pushes in and they see Impact go to deal with it, remember, 1 Nexus turret, he has to deal with it, then they'll most likely look towards the mid lane inhibitor. Same thing with top lane, and if they can get both going at once, the mid inhib should be free. So far, C9 defending extremely well to try and keep them out of the base.
Audi takes a single auto attack from Sneaky, and it doesn't really do that much damage to him, if we're being quite honest. For a 6-item AD carry, Audi's pretty tanky. Contracts and Impact also hanging around 5,000 HP.
Here they go. Top wave is pushed in. They saw Jensen deal with the minions. They start to... Oh, that was a lot.
Big root onto White Lotus. Contract ulti just barely going to be missing out on that one. Gerald trying to get himself away. Fires off the Nature's Grasp. Wants to use it as a disengage mechanism, but now Lyon might see their opportunity to put the last couple of hits onto the mid lane inhib, but they're not quite able to find it. Cloud9 may want to defend this, but they've got to be careful about the fact that Contracts is hurt going into it.
That's one
no
auto
minions
attack.
pressuring in the base right now, and Lyon gets what they came for.
Yeah, so that's all 3 inhibitors gone. However, how long it took to get that inhib means that the rest will probably spawn pretty soon.
It
But
never ends.
Elder in 1 minute. That's what we're looking at now. It's so neck and neck. It's just that Cloud9 are just stuck in their base.
Stuck in their base, at least for the foreseeable future, because of the fact those 3 inhibs are down for now. Creates a very difficult situation with that Elder spawning soon. You probably just have to give it over at this point. I mean, you can't afford to just let the super minions destroy everything.
There is maybe
hard choice.
one chance I would give Cloud9 to go and defend that Elder Dragon. And it's Impact clearing that top wave right now and trying to get in before the next wave crashes. But because it's double waves, I really don't see that as a viable option given how much pressure mid and bottom will also be placing. So it's going to be too disjointed if they attempt to get in and defend this. But Impact is looking. Impact is going to walk his way down. Sneaky's also rotated. Cloud9, they don't want the Elder to go.
Contracts is way too close. He's going to be singled out and bursted down before he can do much of anything. The shield going to be keeping him alive.
Still alive.
Audi now here in the pit trying to defend, be the front line of Team Lion. But Sneaky's able to find free firing time. Geralt now going to be the tank. Nobody dead so far. Cloud9 still looking to make this fight happen. The route out on a Geralt White Lotus.
They got him.
Goes down to Jensen's burst.
And Jensen comes up with a hero play. Cloud9 still with no health to their names. No Warmogs on the choker. He has teleport. He might want to recall. The waves of health inhibs are up.
Hanging around. Side lane inhibitors back up for Cloud9. Audi over the wall. May look to go in. Steal this with the blast cone. Comes over the wall.
Reset.
The Drake may reset here. It does slightly. Audi has to go back with the flag and drag. Cloud9 pulling the Drake out yet again to make sure they secure it, and they do.
That is so tragic. The dragon resets as Audi goes in and looks for the steal. Not going to happen. So 2 Elder Dragons have belonged to Cloud9. The inhibitors have back up. They've respawned. And Contracts is the one who gets caught to start this all off.
All planned.
As if a bit of deja vu seeing Contracts caught out of position in this game. But he lives, and he continues to live. Janna's healing, redemption, everything there to keep him alive. Meanwhile, Geralt, yes, he's tanky, but White Lotus steps up. Jensen sees his chance, takes that one opportunity. And I wouldn't say outplayed. The stun was an outplay. The rest of it was just Syndra's kit.
The
They
rest
get the
of
kills.
it was the Syndra play style. Press R with your mouse hovering over the enemy champion. Now Contract here on the front line yet again. The ball is back in Cloud9's court. The last time it was here, they found it immediately given back over to their opponents. Baron is spawning, and as is Cloud9 tradition, they have to go force the fight right now. Baron should go down rather rapidly. Lyon recognizing this, wanting to get themselves in here. Cloud9 not going to back away this time. Sneaky secures the Baron, but can Cloud9 get themselves away? Both tanks going to be locked down. Stone plates pop to try to make this exit as gracefully as possible. Audi on the front line trying to keep Impact locked down. Sneaky getting himself away along with the rest of Cloud9. And nobody drops this time.
And Audi brings the walls down super early on that Jarvan ultimate. Doesn't want to die to Impact's damage, but at the same time doesn't want Lyon to secure the kill. So doesn't risk anything. They will just stick it out as the 5v5.
Want to go ahead and let everyone know we are now officially watching the longest game so far of Worlds 2017. Previous record was 52-18, and we are just about to go a full minute beyond that. These teams putting everything on the line here, leaving it all on Summoner's Rift. Nearly 1 hour of game time in one of the closest games possibly imaginable in this elimination stage. Cloud9 now with the Elder Drake, with the Baron, seeing what they can do. Throwing out the Sejuani ulti, not honestly getting a lot done with that one right now.
Was close, however, to locking down White Lotus. Remember, he has the Mercurial Scimitar. It's all about popping that cooldown as early as you can. If you do it before a fight happens, well, then that's exactly where you want to find yourself. Disregard the gold difference as well between these teams. If it's over 90k, they're all at full build.
Right.
What we're looking at, though, is Cloud9 with the Baron buff, with the team fight threat. Sneaky also just so fed, pushing him with a Janna supporting him. And the minions now working with them, compliments of the Baron. But still, the one lane they're not in. Looks like Lyon are doing pretty well at equalizing it.
And I've got to give so much props to Lyon Gaming because we came into this series talking about issues with their macro, and this game, whether it's their out rotations that we've seen against Cloud9 at multiple times, or just the fact that they've been in control of this game for, I've got to say, at least 75% of it. This is a team that assessed their mistakes during that one-day break between the group stage and the elimination stage. They found the errors, and they seem to have found a solution to those errors, and they are seriously impressing me in this second game.
Yeah, honestly, this is nothing short of amazing watching Lyon play. And, you know, a lot of people from just watching the group stages would have said they are the team that could cause the upsets just as much as anyone else from the pool 1 seeds. They're giving it to Cloud9, but C9 still have all of the control on Summoner's Rift right now. They've been pushed to the wire, but you give Cloud9 that one opportunity to push in, that one mistake that you make that gives them the map. Well, look how much map they take from it.
And it's interesting that you said that one mistake, because the one fight that Lyon lost, the one death for White Lotus, that's his only death in 55 minutes. Sneaky can say the same. Of course, his death was a little bit earlier, but he's still sitting on only one after nearly an hour of play. Incredible defenses coming out from both AD carries this game.
I mean, it really just goes to show how perfect you have to play if you're against C9 in situations like this. Lyon, they're a slow, methodical team. They don't just throw everything at their opponents. In this instance, well, now they're against the wall. They are going to be the ones that have to try and make some kind of play.
Cloud9 with Baron buff remaining for another 15 seconds, trying to put more damage into the base. Remember, this Lyon base still has not been cracked open. There are no vulnerable inhibs.
Every single time, Cloud9, they push top lane. They're like, no worries, we'll go push top lane, we'll threaten that side. And then they look mid lane, they look bottom lane, and minions are pushing out. They're not threatening more than one lane at once. They are solely grouping up as a 5v5 to team fight. Every single time they group up to 5v5, they lose the tempo in every other wave, and so they spend a minute dealing with it. We're at 56 minutes in this game. C9 cannot control all 3 lanes at once still.
One thing I want to point out that I'm noticing in the inventories right now, like you already mentioned, Rusty, everybody's at 6 items. Well, everybody except for the supports, but the difference between these two, Spectre's Cal and Genthix wanting to go for one final true item, while over on the side of Smoothie, he's not bothering with that. He's just keeping a stack of control wards, even though he has enough gold to purchase something like a Spectre's Cal if he wanted. Cloud9 prioritizing some extra vision on the map to keep eyes on Lyon.
And it may not be a big deal, but ultimately if I was playing support this position and I'm not Genthix, I may have held off on the Spectre's Cow until I could buy a full item. That's the way that I would have seen it. In fact, he's just sold it and gotten 3 control wards. So clearly what he has done is he's purchased the Spectre's Cow because they're stuck in their base against the Baron buff team. He wants to have the magic resistance for the Syndra. Well, now he doesn't need to because the map's closer to equal, so he sells the item. Still believe that 3 control wards as the last slot is the name of the game for any support.
This game has been raging back and forth for so long, and after 57 minutes of fighting, we're still at this break-even point. This could still go either way. When people ask me what kind of games I like to cast the most, what kind of games I enjoy watching the most, I always say the ones where you don't know who's going to win until the final team fight's over. And this is one of those kinds of games, because it could seriously go either way just as easily, depending on who plays it right. And I love that.
And when you look at the game length of just being at 57 minutes into this one, if we pass 58 minutes, this is longer than 2 of Cloud9's games against Lyon put together.
Against anyone
in their
put
group,
together.
rather, put together.
Against anybody.
Yeah.
You can take any of the 2 previous games. We're actually all, well, no wait, I guess if you took the average, we're over double the average already,
Yes.
but there are the upper end of those that could still pass the current time up, but not for long. Cloud9 up 7,000 gold, but like we said, it means a whole lot of nothing.
This is where you want that Meteos kick, you know?
Yeah.
It just doesn't exist. It's
You gotta
contracts on the set
get
body.
that in there, but we got 1 minute till Baron's up. Elder Drake will also be making a reappearance here shortly in a couple of minutes. And like you mentioned when we were discussing it earlier, when the gold doesn't matter anymore, that just means that whoever owns those uber buffs, they're the ones that truly have the edge. It just means more and more and more as you approach this end-game state.
And through this game, actually, nope.
Wow, that was instant from White Lotus.
So it happens when the Syndra hits the stun first as well, but that is the QSS. That's such a big cooldown. We've mentioned this a couple of times already. This could be a really bad state for White Lotus to find himself in. knowing that he doesn't have the QSS there to keep him alive if Syndra finds him, if Sejuani has the ultimate back off cooldown.
But it is such a tricky window because you've got to wait the 45 seconds for the Sejuani ult to come back, and then you've got to execute in the next 32 seconds after that.
And would you believe it, Captain Flowers, we're back at the bush. And there's a fight
Where it all
happening.
started is where it may all end. Cloud9 looking to potentially go onto Lyon here, but not finding the rupture means that plan will cancel out. Still looking to contest vision over this brush.
C9 still have control of mid lane, though. They've pushed the wave out. They don't need to respond to the Baron unless Lyon are doing it, which they are right now. The push is on. The question is, do Cloud9 react to this fight? They don't push mid lane. It looks like they want it.
There's a large minion wave bottom side for Lyon as well. Lyon likely recognizing this. That's why they're making this fight happen now. Jensen losing 3/4 of his HP to the combo from Seiya. However, that means the shockwave cannot be used in the upcoming fight. Positioning now, much less of a concern for Cloud9. They don't have to worry about walking into those. Audi flag and drag over the wall to keep himself safe. Cloud9, they realize there's that many minions in their bottom lane. They're picking it right now. They're saying, look, it's time to do or die.
To deal with
We
it.
say do. Cloud9 starting up the Baron. Got it down to about half HP. Nature's Grasp comes out from the Maokai, trying to lock these guys down. Contracts coming in.
The QSS
Finds
was
the
back.
ulti, but the QSS was back up. White Lotus going to be kept alive for now. Tanks on the front line doing exactly what their namesake says. Jarol and Audi trying to stay alive, but the first kill goes to Sneaky.
Sneaky's damage is incredible, though. It looks like Cloud9, with the reset of Smoothie's ultimate, they're not respecting the base. It is starting to die. One inhibitor's gone, but they're back on the Baron. Look at Audi.
Cloud9 trying to take this Baron. Their base is being taken apart, though. They've got to make sure they finish this off cleanly. Baron down to about 3k HP. Audi comes into the pit, but it's secured by contracts. Audi likely going to drop here as a result of jumping there into the pit. Now Sneaky on the killing spree. They're finding the kills onto Lotus and Genthix as well. It's one man versus the world. Seiya stands alone.
Still the triple kill for Sneaky. Teleport there from Impact. They are not looking at defending their base at all. They want to end this one right now. 4 people dead for a very long time. You would have to imagine the Cloud9 can do this. As long as they walk in 1 minion, Seiya's got Rogue.
Seiya knows that he cannot defend 1 versus 5. He is
got
going for
so
the outplay.
rogue.
Cloud9 has 1 minion there. Seiya trying to flash clear these minions out of the way, but it will not be enough. 61 minutes into the game, and Cloud9 finds the win.
That was a very long, intense game for both of these teams, but ultimately Cloud9 were able to put themselves up on that pedestal 2-0 in the best of 5 series. And we said after game 1, maybe it doesn't affect them mentally if you're Lyon. Well, after game number 2, I'm going to say that one affected them just a little bit.
Holy moly, if a game like that doesn't affect you mentally in terms of being fatigued, in terms of being exhausted, you are not human. I don't care whether you're Cloud9 or Lyon, to go through that and finally reach that ending 61 minutes in, that is grueling.
And I was almost convinced for most of that game that White Lotus was not in fact human, that he was some kind of specially crafted robot for League of Legends, but he does show that he has the ability to make mistakes, even though they're rare, and Cloud9 still show they have the abilities to capitalize on those mistakes. And 1 death, and look at what happened for Cloud9. The goal graph completely shifts. They give themselves the entire game just off the 1 moment that Lyon just have a lapse in judgment.
That one little moment being the shifting point is just one of the stories that we see repeated time and again at the top level of League of Legends. It's the smallest things that can make the biggest differences. Cloud9 were able to bring that game back, and to find out how that happened, let's send things over to the analyst desk.
Thank you very much, Captain Fox. I just want to start off by saying, as good as Cloud9 looked, White Lotus was a machine that game.
Yeah, I mean, this is the kind of breakout performance for him. He was given a lot of resources early. This is what we were saying at the start of the day. This is the guy that is most likely going to have to carry Lyon Gaming over the finish line here.
It reminded me a lot of his series versus WE, the very first one where he was playing Kog'Maw, was like 7, or ended the game like 10-1 and 7 or something like that. Or actually there was one from Patton as well that was very similar. But it's almost like these guys make it to that late game, and then everybody else around them kind of falters. The engage isn't correct, because both him and Seiya were getting into that late part of the game with 0 deaths. There's only like 1 or 2, I believe, 2 of them actually for White Lotus, and both of them were really him trying to be too far forward, trying to actually get those auto attacks down on the Varus.
And we wanted to see a bit of a shift coming in from Lyon, and we definitely did. It felt like they were playing so much more around their bottom lane. As we look at our first replay of this early tower dive, we can see Lyon, I think, have found a potential way to win out here against Cloud9.
Absolutely, and Audi also having the Jarvan pick had a great path to start this game out. A little bit more aggressive jungle option allows them to get these advantages. Also, they put more focus on counterpicking their bot lane, and they emphasize those 2 points right there in that dive, and it starts blowing sneaky up, and that's where the game slowly starts getting out of control for C9.
Yeah, Audi just seems like a really innovative jungler in terms of his routes. Like, he's going to try things throughout this series, so it's hard to read him. And I like that he went for the bottom side this time and went for the invade to try and put contracts behind, because he was a big part of how they got ahead and controlled blue buffs. And now he did that this time with the winning bottom lane, which allowed them to kind of dictate the pace of the game early. It just got to the later part of the game where they weren't able to close, and it started, like, we're looking at score lines where they're very far behind on Cloud9's side. If you're just looking at kills, we had 5-0 in kills. It just kept getting bigger and bigger. But Cloud9 are still in it because they're just macroing a little bit better.
Right,
Yeah.
the gold lead never became huge until they finally got that first Baron buff, but at that point it was, 35 minutes in the game, I believe, and the game just kept grinding on and on and on. They found time to get the gold lead back in their favor, and C9 made it, so this was basically a coin flip game.
And I just want to say, both teams keeping their composure in such high-risk scenarios, but ultimately I felt like one of the big turning points was, as good as White Lotus played, as many skill shots as he could dodge, he could not dodge everything. So as we take a look at this next replay, brought to you by Acer Predator, we can see that Cloud9 still finding openings despite being behind.
That mostly tracking White Lotus and just how much damage actually flies his way here and who ends up doing that damage. Because right now he's being shielded constantly, the Lulu ultimate just gets blown there, and now White Lotus, even with a Knight's Vow on him, gets stunned, has the W land on him, the flash forward, Q, and ultimate simultaneously is what ends up killing him there. So even with the Knight's Vow on, and then the Lulu ultimate was on cooldown, he gets blown up because Jensen sees the opportunity.
It's just really hard to understand that stun was coming at him because the Xayah feathers are actually very similarly colored.
A lot of noise, yeah.
So, it's really hard to track that stun. I saw one ball coming. I didn't even see the other one because it didn't look like an actual stun. It looked like a Xayah feather, and then he gets hit by it. And at that point in the game, Jensen can blow up anybody in the entire game.
Yeah, and we're looking at it in that replay, right? We kind of aren't in the game. We aren't really just having our blood pump or anything like that. And it's still hard to decipher all the information, the Xayah feathers, the balls on the ground. There's so much visual clutter and noise with these big tanks like Cho'Gath using Stoneplate, etc., that it's very hard to track everything in the fight. And as soon as you miss one thing and you don't see it coming, then you end up dying like that. And really, White Lotus played his heart out. But Jensen, this is a guy that we've been saying isn't really clutch in those high-pressure games. This is a best of 5 to get them into group stage. They drop this, there's nothing to save them. He stepped up there in that moment.
Yeah, definitely looking good already. The 2-0 start. As we take a look at the final fight, we can see how when you get this late in the game, you need those clutch players to step up. When you have those windows or opportunity, you need to take them.
And White Lotus, excuse me. White Lotus was definitely the main focus. I've been saying it so much behind the screen. He was the main focus the entire game, but Sneaky actually had a monster performance as well. You see him here putting out a ton of damage down on the front line of Lyon Gaming, who are basically perma-CC'd. They're unable to get out. Jensen finally drops his ultimate to finish them off. And once that first frontline member is down, it's almost impossible to play team fights out. Janna also able to top up the rest of her team.
Well, remember, this is when Seiya had used his ultimate to try and pick Jensen, and it got reset by Redemption. So he doesn't have his ulti until right now, and he uses it, it chunks them out, but then they flash away from the piercing arrow, which may have been enough to actually take out Jensen there, and that saves them there, and this Baron goes over once again. 24 HP.
So close. This whole entire game was crazy, but once they committed to that Baron, there's no way out. C9 kill a couple more people and finally able to run down mid lane.
Hey, so it is like coming down to coin flips. That was a lot of coins being flipped in this game. There was a hell of a lot of coins.
Too many coins.
Yeah, it's a coin flip flipped many, many times.
I think the big thing for me is ultimately, what do you feel like brought it home for Cloud9? Because this was incredibly close. There were so many fights that could have gone either way, but what was actually the deciding factor here in this game?
For me, I would have to say that it was that they didn't blow the game open quite fast enough. They got a lot of picks around the mid lane, but they weren't transitioning that into big advantages, where the goldie never really broke 2K until they finally got that first Baron. And that was, like we said, 35 minutes of the game. It's great. They get all the inhibitors, and then they needed one more play after that to end the game, and it felt like they never quite got all of them in a row, quite like C9 does when they get a lead.
Yeah, I think my biggest issue with what closed it out for C9 was Lyon were in advantageous positions, but they never used the map map and used things like split push, used the minion waves that were crashing into C9's base to sit at Baron and say, like, we're not actually starting this. We're going to wait for the minion waves to push in, etc. So I don't feel like they ever really abused that advantage of the minions, and I felt like that was really what helped C9.
All right, well, ultimately, Cloud9 were able to bring the series to match point. We'll see if Lyon can strike back and start the reverse sweep in Game 3. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this.
Pops off the Nature's Grasp. The Sejuani ulti comes through. Impact wants to get a big old bite out of him, but can't quite do it. First blood! This is another day in the mid lane offense, except for this. Oh, Jensen now going to be dumped. The power of the jungle coming in.
辅助已经被打到了半血，看到这样鬼玩家还在谈正面的话是有新的拉配合想打出飞火游戏，因为发育大招是没有打到人。
Shockwave onto Jensen. If they can take him down, that is going to be huge. But White Lotus now going to be silenced, knocked up into the air. The damage coming through. The stun land. Lyon looking to push up into the Cloud9 base. Gentix gets himself taken out by Jensen. Audi likely going to drop here as a result of jumping there into the pit. Now Sneaky on the killing spree. They're finding the kills onto Lotus and Gentix as well. 61 minutes into the game, and Cloud9 finds the win. Welcome back to Match Point in Cloud9 versus Lyon Gaming. If you're just now joining us, the first game was a quick victory for Cloud9. The second game was anything but. It went for over an hour long, and it was one of those kinds of games you just didn't know who was going to win until the very end, where Cloud9 was able to find their victory.
Certainly wasn't quick, but it was a victory for Cloud9. Just barely, you would have to say, as they scraped into the finish line. Lyon honestly did look fantastic, but what I admire from Cloud9, as we were talking about during the break, is that they lose so gracefully to the point where they didn't actually lose the entire game. They're able to lose so well that Lyon couldn't beat them and get to the Nexus, and ultimately Cloud9 held on for long enough that they get to the 6-item stage, to the point in the game where nothing mattered except for team fighting and for executing better than your opponents, and it feels like that's what Cloud9 just beat them in the end.
And talking about execution, talking about where we go from here, Lyon Gaming has no more room for error. Cloud9 only needs one more win to move themselves out of this, eliminate Lyon's Worlds 2017 dreams, and move on to the main event group stage themselves. For Lyon, it's all about mentally resetting after what had to be a completely emotionally and mentally draining game.
Yeah.
And being ready to go into 3 more back-to-back-to-back and win all of them if you want to proceed.
And it's a lot easier to do if you win this next game. Obviously, they have to. But your mentality, your momentum, everything gets better when you get a victory on the board. But unfortunately for them, and the biggest problem they're now going to face is after 60 minutes losing a game, that's a lot that actually drains you out simply because you're playing for 60 minutes. It's very intense. That game was super back and forth. There was a lot of team fights. It could be everywhere, all over the shop. People could be just losing their minds. But at the same time, I saw smiles at the end of that game. Lyon lost, and I still saw smiles. And I feel like that's such a big positive for the team. They are friends just as much as they are a team, and they should be able to come back into this next game okay, but we'll need to see that actually play out on the Rift.
I think that attitude is so important too, because a game like that feels like such a roller coaster. And if you can't end that roller coaster on one of those really cool, emotionally high types of feelings, as opposed to one of the emotionally low feelings of, oh my God, I can't believe we just lost that after an hour, that'll absolutely carry over into whatever you're going to be doing from there. So if the team's in high spirits, there couldn't be anything better for them at this point in time, because it is do or die now. I mean, they fought through the group stage. They managed to get one of the second seeds. They managed to qualify for the elimination stage. They drew one of the tougher opponents possible for themselves, and they nearly found the win after, like we said in the last game, being ahead for what had to be 75-80% of the game.
Most of the game. And yeah, they did the work to get to this. And now it's just that hard last hurdle of going up against Cloud9, who've been playing out of their minds through the group stage themselves, respectively. And that really is the problem for them. Backs against the wall. The coach probably backstage was saying, guys, it's all right. We're still going to be in this perfectly fine. And that's one other thing that I have to look towards is, will the coach just say, go all in, play your comfortable champions if anyone's, mentally affected in any way? Or will the coach say we have to play this stock standard, be focusing on their mentality above all else? Because when you're 0-2 down, it is that all or nothing moment with your back against the wall. You could pull out something crazy because you feel like it might still be a 3-0, or you pull out something different to surprise Cloud9. And from what we've seen, different works against Cloud9 decently well.
And we've talked a lot about Lyon, and I want to switch gears up a second here and talk about Cloud9, because this is a team that, remember when we were looking at the players' reactions and their attitudes and their general outlook on being in play-ins, Jensen especially seemed just completely over the idea that he was even playing in this stage, with tweets like, I just saw the play-in draw, I still don't know who I'm playing against, and specifically towards this match, why am I playing against a guy named White Lettuce? It seems like Cloud9 is ready to move past this stage and get to the point where they're competing in the main event group. And if you can manage to win your elimination game 3-0, well, that just backs up that attitude that says, okay, maybe they are talking a little bit of smack, but maybe they deserve to.
I mean, Cloud9 were ready to be past this stage before they were in this stage.
Right.
Ultimately, the answer to that is, well, don't finish third and you won't be in this stage. But they're still smashing everybody in this stage. So at the same time, you have to commend them for performing well. And it wasn't necessarily arrogance. It was just playing very well and being confident. That's what we're seeing from Cloud9. That confidence does bleed into the games, into the post games after they win. You can see the stone cold faces from them when they're getting these victories. They go over, they shake their hands, they're all right. And it's just another day in the office for Cloud9.
And a lot of it's coming down to this guy you're seeing on your screen right now, Jensen During that last game, we talked so much about the one time that White Lotus died, that one pick that Cloud9 got that really turned the momentum of the game towards the end, and it was Jensen who found the damage. It was Jensen recognizing, I can kill this guy. And as much as people might like to make jokes about the Syndra R, and oh yeah, he really outplayed him by pressing R there, he still had the knowledge. He still had the gut instinct to say, this kills him. He goes forward, he makes the play, and he finds that clutch pick that ultimately broke open what was just this wall, stopping Cloud9 from doing anything the entire time.
I mean, he also has the awareness. It means that Cloud9 as a team have the communication. They all were very much aware that White Lotus was a machine that needed to be taken down, and they said that if I have to sacrifice myself, flash forwards and kill him to actually get him off the board, I will do so. He survives when he does it because it's just so incredibly played by Jensen in that situation. Honestly, I agree with what we said on the analyst desk. I didn't even realize there was a second Syndra ball there that was going to be able to stun him, but that's all it takes against Syndra because she is designed to one-hit carries, caught out of position one time, and that's what a Syndra can do to you. That's what Jensen on Syndra can do to you.
Quick update for people watching. It appears that we have a slight mouse issue happening right now. Should only take a minute or so to resolve that, and then hopefully we'll be into Champion Select for this third game, because going into this third game, Cloud9 has selected to go back onto blue side, which they were in game number 1. And remember, that was their convincing victory. That was the victory that looked like all their group stage wins in play-ins for 2017 Worlds, where they won in 24 minutes, just stomped their opponents into the ground, and there was no chance. When Lyon was on blue side, that's when you get the 61-minute slugfest.
Yeah, that's when it looks like Lyon might be able to beat Cloud9. Of course, C9 getting the victory just at the end. You still saw dominance in game 1, as you mentioned. Coming into the third game, still being on the blue side of the rift, it feels like that might just be the strong side between both of these teams, and just for Cloud9 in general, being able to control through the bottom lane, it feels like, getting into the enemy blue buff, having that open access through the ramp up there. And that's before we're even talking about the draft itself for C9. I mean, they get the first pick. They got Kalista in game number 1 of this series, and that's kind of just a champion you shouldn't be giving to people in the first place. They also got Sejuani in game number 2, which has 100% presence and is banned more than is picked. And it was a decent performance from Contract mechanically. The decision-making was ultimately his downfall.
Yeah, there was a little...
game 2.
There were a couple question mark pings in there, but the one thing I'm going to be looking at, the pick above any others, is the Orianna, because it has been very instrumental in both of these games so far. We talked a lot in game number 2 about how the Shockwaves were zoning Cloud9 away from approaching near the Barons and just preventing them from making plays. But in game number 1, the Orianna pick was also very useful for Jensen. He was able to do a lot in those team fights. He found some good Shockwaves, good picks. And I want to see if teams are still prioritizing the Syndra more, or if maybe in this clutch moment, we shift the Ori.
Yeah, there's a very real chance that if Ori is the priority for someone like Sayer as well, I feel like Jensen won't be too flustered by either choice, that he might go for an earlier rotation of the champion, might want to pick that one up for himself. It's all about comfort, I would say, in this third game.
We have seen Cloud9 sometimes opt for that. Usually if they're down in a series, usually in more of a desperate situation, sometimes Jensen will say, just give me my champion, and they'll give it over to him early. But maybe they'll go for that this time. Into picks and bans for the third time today. Braum and Maokai banned out by Cloud9. Same thing they did in game number 1. Jarvan and Kalista banned by Lyon.
Yeah, and following that up, of course, when you've got the flexes removed, the Sejuani is the other champion that we're seeing an awful lot of. But I'm not too sure we'll see that as a ban because, yeah, exactly that. Sneaky has been playing incredibly well, and I feel like if I was him, Tristan is a pretty easy lock at the moment.
Honestly, these bans are looking a lot like they did in game number 1 for Cloud9, Rusty. I'm pretty sure that's the exact same 3 champions in the exact same order that we saw the first time around. They said, hey, this was a working strategy. This was exactly what we needed it to be. Plus, that Maokai from Jural was so tanky and so obnoxious in game number 2, locking people down with the Nature's Grasp and just making this terrain that was impossible to fight in. I can see why you would ban that out again, and Cloud9 locks in Sejuani.
Yeah, but the Xayah, the Kalista, the champion that they played last time in J4 being removed, still leaves open Sejuani as an option. However, we mentioned that if you want to leave open 180 carry that is a priority, I guess this is an interesting draft from Lyon. They almost wanted to force the Sejuani or force the Tristana so they get 2 options themselves. And it's either that Contracts really highly prioritizes Oddie not getting Sejuani, or Lyon just threw the bait out and they said, you can take Tristana, we have a counter. Not how it plays out at all, because once again, Cho'Gath is the other champion that's there with the Trist for red side. I like this from Lyon so far.
Yeah, Lyon grabbing themselves 2 really strong picks in exchange for the 1 strong pick they gave up, and When you're on the red side, yeah, you have to give up first pick. Your opponents get first choice of what they want to do. But if you can put yourself in a spot like that where you say, you get 1, we get 2, it's really not that bad at the end of the day as long as you're comfortable playing whatever it is they leave behind. Cloud9 locks in the Shen as their second champion this time around. Some team fighting across the map, protectability, as well as pretty decent laner.
Yeah, definitely, and a lot of protection for any kind of AD carry or hyper carry that goes into the middle lane as well, which is one of the roles that we're yet to see through this draft. And so my question with 10 seconds left is, do they prioritize an AD carry with 2 of them gone, 1 picked? Something like the Jinx if it's a Shen hyper carry composition, or that.
Oh, the submarine. You can get the Twitch stealthed up, have the Shen ulti on top of him, completely ambush the entire enemy team. Twitch is one of those champions too, just one of the highest outputs for damage in the whole game.
It definitely is. Twitch can hyper carry when you get toward the later stages of this game. Now, if you are Lyon, you've seen a Twitch and a Shen locked in, you know that they want a Janna or a Lulu in the support role, something that can build out and sensor, perhaps even Karma's going to be there. So what Lyon can do now is they can pick Lulu, they can ban 2 of them, and then they can look towards, if they have to, flexing a Karma in the middle lane or something like that. It means that they can take things away from Cloud9.
Let's see how the teams do decide to play this second part of the bans. AD carry, top laner, and jungler already picked for Cloud9, so mids and supports going to be banned out by Lyon. They do ban the Thresh away first, and with Lyon having their bottom lane and their top laner locked in, that means it's mid laners and junglers that Cloud9 will be looking to ban away.
Certainly will be. So you're expecting another support from Lyon as their secondary ban. Try and just disempower that Twitch, prevent him from being a hyper carry. It's the first one that we're going to be seeing at Worlds for 2017. And so rightly so, they want to try and prevent him from scaling up where Tristana is relevant for most of the game. It's that team fighting scare that Lyon seem to want to have, and that's why I'm okay with this from Sneaky, if they can get to the team fighting.
Cloud9 banning one of those playmaking junglers that Adi had sort of built a name for himself on, the LYN, taken out this time. They don't want to have the potential of having that ever so important Twitch getting kicked to the forefront of the fight, so they'll remove him. As Rakan is banned out by Lyon, we know how much of a playmaker that champ is, and they don't want Smoothie on it.
Yeah, they get rid of Rakan and Thresh, which are both playmaking utility-based supports. They don't really seem to be worried about a Janna locked in. And of course, with the Twitch, you maybe want someone that has more lane dominance, lane control to make him stronger through the lane as we get a first change in the mid lane, let's say.
Syndra banned away means we will not get to see the same matchup for a third time. At least not this time, Rusty. But it also means Orianna's still up, and Orianna's one of those champs people like to put in compositions where you have things like a Twitch. So maybe that's what Lyon wants. We'll have to see what they decide to pick up. Remember, still looking for a jungler and a mid laner, and ooh, all right.
They pick the blob in the jungle, so they want the tank, they want the ganking tank in that, which is what Zac will be able to provide when the Cho'Gath is on your team once again. That's expected. The Zac is not expected, but there's a lot of gank opportunities for it.
But what I don't like about the Zac is that Janna's traditionally one of the champions that when people think, what ruins Zac's day, Janna ruins Zac's day. He tries to jump in, you just tornado him, everything goes really bad really quickly. And Janna also, like you got done saying just moments ago, synergizes so well with the Twitch composition. So this is just a no-brainer for Cloud9.
Yeah, and once again, when you want to talk about no-brainers, it's not going to be the Azir, it's the mid laner that we were talking about a minute ago. And when you look at the team composition, I'm not expecting Azir to be locked in. I'm expecting this because quite simply, that is a lot of shields. That's a whole lot of shields for a hyper carry and a second damage threat.
This composition from Cloud9 is exactly what they want it to be, both in terms of their own goals and disrupting their opponent's goals, like we talked about with the Janna versus the Zac. Lyon has one more pick to put this together and make it all work. It's do or die. Worlds is on the line.
And it is a mid laner in response to the Orianna. They gave the counter to Seiya. They've empowered him to try his absolute hardest to help them carry this game.
And it looks like he'll be doing it on the Jace this time around. Now, my one concern about that one is most of the big, heavy-hitting damage numbers for Lyon are going to be both AD this time. You are going to have AP damage in the form of your Zac and your Cho'Gath, but if we're talking about late-game hyper-carry damage dealers, if for some weird reason we end up in a 61-minute game twice in a row, Armor's going to do a lot against the Lyon game.
Obviously will, yes, but when you look at the armor builders as well, they've got a fair chunk of them. So C9 actually very well equipped to deal with Lyon's comp if we get to that stage in the game. But when I look at Lyon's composition, I mean, late game could work for them, I'm not feeling it as their primary objective. Cho'Gath can control his lane. Zach can gank very well early. Jace with early lane control and his ability to blast people when he builds lethality with the Ghost Blades and the Dusk Blades. And then a Tristana who can hit the 1-item spike, 2-item spike, and can still do a lot of work all game with Lulu to empower that. I just feel like they want to control their lanes a bit more, and they want their jungler to win as a result of controlling those lanes, get the advantage, and just hard go for objectives or dives.
And I want to see what Adi does in this game, because the past 2 games, he's had awesome level 2 plays. Game number 1, you get first blood. Game number 2, you head into the enemy jungle, waste your opponent's flash, steal his Gromp, and have a level advantage for the next 10 minutes. Adi needs to keep that up if his team wants to be competitive here in the 3rd and potentially final game of this best of 5. Cloud9 up 2-0, 1 game away from going to that main group stage for Worlds 2017. Lyon holding on for dear life. We load into Summoner's Rift now for the 3rd time. The teams are out onto the Rift. Smoothie flashes his lone emote. That's a lack of team synergy that everybody else didn't flash it with him. Maybe this is a good omen for Lyon Gaming.
He's making a statement. Smoothie really wants to win. The other guys won't even pay.
The other guys are halfway in there, just sort of hanging out.
There's still definitely some faith to be had if you're a Lyon fan, but Cloud9 with all the momentum, the fact that they won that 60-minute game can only bode well for them. Their opponents are the ones that have something to prove. We're not chanting TSM.
I was gonna say,
How dare you?
about to wonder, are we chanting TSM in the crowd right now?
We can't escape it.
No, it's worldwide. Contracts hanging out in the Pixel Brush. Not really going to see any action early on here. Impact now going to take his spot.
It's also a fairly simple, I guess, standard game to play out if you're Cloud9. It's a front-to-back type of composition. You've got a Shen who can split push, but the biggest thing that you have to highlight for these guys is ultimately it's a Twitch Janna 2v2. That has no impact on Summoner's Rift. They barely exist until they get one completed item. You're looking at the Ardent Sensor for Janna. Might be a Hurricane Rush from the Twitch as well. I know the LPL loves that. I know that not everyone else always does it to that extent, but seems to be the way to go for the most part. It just means that Lyon have so much early, perhaps tempo advantage if lanes play out as expected. And so for C9, any kind of advantage is a good advantage. Any kind of neutralization of something is great as impact.
Speaking of early game moves, this time Adi's the one who's having the moves made onto him. Impact just moving up, disrupting this jungle as much as he can, but he's got to get back to his own lane. Sneaky, honestly eating a lot of damage from that explosive charge. Pops the barrier super early.
Welcome to the lane. Genthix has Ignite. White Lotus still has his Summoners.
Smoothie going pretty aggro onto Genthix himself. Sneaky trying to get in there for a little bit of extra damage, but Genthix continues to walk away.
Yeah, Genthix actually overstays his welcome there with a couple of auto attacks, but ultimately you're still looking at advantage going to Lyon, who's mid lane.
Saya gets a good trade for himself. Remember, we have seen this Jace banned out in previous games, so Saya may be able to make some crazy plays on this one. We'll have to see. He is up against that Orianna from Jensen that we've already talked about, being one of Jensen's comfort picks, one of the ones that Cloud9 will often default to when it's time to really hunker down and win the game. Contract working on his own blue buff. Geralt wanted to come up and try to stop that, but not really any success there. Impact with a not quite accurate taunt. Thought Geralt was going to go a little bit further forward than he did.
I'm calling that a dodge more than a miss, though. I'll give credit to Geralt for the fancy footwork, actually stuttering and walking backwards to dodge the taunt, but Contracts is here. I assume he's now invisible. There he is.
Wants to make sure the Arctic Assault is back off the cooldown, charges in, immediately gets the flash.
Yeah, very much a respectful flash from Geralt, but it's now gone. And so throughout that top lane, there's 5 minutes of opportunity to take him down.
Look at the stats comparison between these two guys on your screen right now. These 80 carries that we've been saying these games are all about. Kill participation very close, but a slight edge for White Lotus. Damage per minute very close, but a slight edge for Sneaky. But the KDA, Sneaky with a 17.
And the thing is, like, a 17 KDA is incredible, but you don't look at White Lotus and say, oh no, man's got a 7 KDA, that's pretty bad. Like, 7's insane.
Ridiculous. I mean, you look at normal stats, people don't have 7s.
He's 0-2 in a best of 5 and his KDA is 7.
It's a little bit silly. This guy is honestly showing himself as an incredible 80 carry talent, especially from an emerging region. right now finds himself on the losing end of a trade against Sneaky and Smoothie. Sneaky running out of mana pretty quickly, though.
And yeah, so at first you look at the trades that Genthix was having with Smoothie and saying that it doesn't matter too much. And the reason that I said it doesn't matter too much is quite simply because Genthix starts with 3 potions when you're playing a support, just in any lane. But now he has no potions left and is still at half health, which means that C9 have just outright won this.
Yep.
In the 2v2. That's a Tristan to Lulu just losing to the Twitch Janna.
That lane that we said had no impact and would not do anything has apparently found a way to have some impact and do some things up against their opponents here. Sneaky going after White Lotus. Smoothie going to be following up. We got Contracts moving in down here as well. White Lotus jumping himself away. Does not have the heal any longer. Genthix Flash also going to be popped there by Contracts, as Audi is just a couple of seconds too late and can't come in to try to get anything in return.
Yeah, Audi just flexes, grabs the ground, and realizes that is just a really unfortunate idea that he should not follow through with. Both flashes, one flash used by Genthix, the heal by White Lotus as he jumped away. Not a great position to find yourself in if you're the bottom lane of Lyon, where you should maybe be controlling that lane just a bit more. You've got the Ignite in the matchup. The barrier was used at level 1.
Lions players, very mechanically talented for their own region, and honestly, they've proved themselves on the world stage here so far. That was one of the questions that we asked back at the start of the series was, you know, they're a big fish from a small pond, but are they just a guppy when they get thrown into a big pond? And the answer hasn't been yes. These guys have shown themselves to be a formidable fish, which is exactly where they want to be. This is how you prove yourselves. You come to these international events as an emerging region, as one of these underdog teams, and you step up and you take Cloud9 to a 61-minute game. You take WE to 2 closer matches than people expected, and you really showcase that you're putting in a lot of work to get where you are right now.
Yeah, it's just fair to say they are good. That's what we've been seeing from Lyon. We knew that Cloud9 were good, so naturally our expectations for them are higher, and the fact that they get pushed to 61 minutes is something that you'll look at and say, how did they get pushed that hard? But they still show that they're capable of losing slowly, team fighting very well, and beating Lyon in one of their strengths that gets them to this elimination round in the first place, which is that team fighting.
All right, taking a look at the map right now, you can see some wards being placed by both sides into the enemy side jungle. Keeping an eye on the bottom part of the jungle. Lions trying to make sure Contracts doesn't sneak his way down there again. Really wants to protect that bottom lane that's now without a couple of summoner spells. While top side, Contracts focusing more on controlling the river. Keeping eyes on that enemy Raptor camp as well. Seeing where Audie's hanging around. Maybe if he wants to go towards that top end, try to tilt things in the favor of
Oh no, whoa, Smoothie.
Tries to go for the flash into the knockup. Doesn't quite find what he's looking for. Sneaky.
No heal.
Wants another attack, but not quite able to get that one.
Super nice polymorph out of Genthix at the end of that. Smoothie had a different idea to that of Sneaky, it feels like. And flashing forwards as Janna very rarely will get you the kill, but I mean, he hit the Q, hit the tornado. Didn't mean too much in the end, but they will try once again to push Genthix away. They want to perhaps get this minion wave under the turret before they recall. They should be able to go back to base though, based off the trade they just won. And that's the fundamental thing about all of what we're seeing right now, is that Sneaky's pushing it in before he recalls. He's got a 12 CS lead that may still exist. Top lane had the flash blown, but it's now back up and available, and Contracts didn't gank them all. So you look at this and you're like, it's 0-0. Gold's only 600. It's pretty good for Lyon, but they're not winning, which is what you expected from it.
Right, this is very closely resembling the first game between these two teams tonight, where Cloud9 built themselves up passive leads in the lanes just thanks to the fact that they were farming better and accumulating that gold through those methods. Contracts and Jensen, once again, blue buff doesn't go to the red side mid lane player is the name of this series. And
Blue
it
side,
is not
blue
stopping here. Yep, blue side, blue buff. End of the story. Audi top side, level 6 on the Zac means you've got, we still call it Let's Bounce. I honestly don't remember the name. Yep, Let's Bounce.
Is it really still called
Ready to
that?
go. Yeah, it's really still called Let's Bounce. I thought we might have changed the name on it when the ability got changed around, but it is still the same one because he does bounce away with whoever is unfortunate enough to get stuck in the goop.
I feel like it should be Let's Jump.
That would probably make a little bit more sense.
Let's slingshot back or something. I don't know.
But in the meantime, he has managed to give a blue buff away to his mid laner. He just had to go to the other side of the map to find it.
I mean, they still get it,
adaptation.
and that is
Yeah.
good from them to have that blue buff at all based off what we've been seeing in all of these games. Everything will equalize. As far as mid lane is concerned, Say is doing his part. He hasn't
shopped and got anything meaningful for items, and he's not really going to be able to just destroy an Orianna this early on into the game. Jensen's doing quite well for himself. White Lotus is swapping lanes at the moment as well. This is the Lyon special, it feels like, and the second Sneaky notices, he just ults in there and clears the wave.
Pushes that whole wave out. He has his jungler down here as well. They're saying, all right, you guys wanted to swap top. Well, you're going to give up turret first blood for it. But the question is, are they actually going to do that run?
Oh, yeah.
Tristana is up in the top side. And as soon as I pose that question, the camera switches back and makes me a liar before I can complete my sentence. Cloud9 gets themselves turret first blood.
They got it in there very quickly. They had the cannon wave built up as well, and damage to the turret had already been done from all of the lane control that Cloud9 had for themselves, and they're not done when it comes to pushing. Janna's shields, Twitch having the attack speed bonus from being invisible and coming back out, means they're going to at least chunk this turret down.
And we saw this last game. It was Cloud9 who actually had this done to them when Sneaky was pushing the top side and the tier 2 got attacked. Now Lyon looking to turn things around down here. Contract's going to be the one who's held in place. Audi trying to make the moves happen. Let's bounce. Not going to be finding anyone. Stand United comes in. They find the taunt now on to Giral. Nearly taken down there by the auto attacks from Sneaky. Barely gets himself away.
Really deep from impact, but everyone's going to survive in the end. Nice cancel from Sejuani onto the Zac, as that is one of the longest arms you've
that's
ever
a
seen.
really long arm. I was surprised they connected.
I'm not too sure how it did, but it did. Then his arm just stretched for days. A champion that we didn't mention actually in the matchup is that Sejuani is quite good into Zac and was one of the later picks into the champion, as cancelled.
Okay, Audi tries to go after Smoothie, but Smoothie says nope. Pops the ulti, denies him that one. Saya underneath his turret for now, facing the wrath of the Jensen Orianna, who's currently up just an ever so slightly to 5 CS, but Lyon is knocking on the bottom lane turret, seeing if they can take this one down, get themselves an overall objective advantage, and I think they will.
And they just actually upset Cloud9's tempo by staying down here in the bottom lane. They had a lot of pressure done from the level 1 through 3 phase when they were pushing in consistently, doing damage to the enemy structure. But ultimately, Cloud9 overstayed to do damage to the bottom lane inner. And that's where they're made to punish for this, because they have to go back to base. Lyon do not need to go back to base, as they were the ones reacting and responding. And so they'll get the turret trade, which ultimately gives them the advantage, because Cloud9 only traded damage onto one, not the kill.
But here's the funny thing, Rusty. 11 minutes into the game, still 0-0 in kills. Cloud9 is down in turrets, but they're up almost 1,000 in gold. And again, we have to go back to the farm. We have to go back to the individual mechanical player and champion matchups. Even like the ones we were talking about that you would expect the Tristana to win in bottom lane, and then they don't.
They're losing by the most as well when you want to contrast those, as White Lotus has just found contracts. But you're right, when we look at the farm values, you can see how that translates to the gold as well. I mean, the gold difference isn't substantial everywhere or anywhere, but there is a difference everywhere. And even though it's a small amount, you know, 400 through support or like 300 through AD carry, at 12 minutes in the game, that starts to add up, and perhaps they finish an item one wave sooner. Perhaps it means that they'll get to the objective 1 minute earlier or have one extra ward, and that can make the difference in a game like this.
League of Legends, the game of inches more often than not. Which team can manage to just eke out that slight advantage for themselves? Sneaky invisible here in the mid lane. Maybe he can bait a trap. Goes for Saya. Accelerated gauge shock blast takes off half the Smoothie's health in one hit. That's the problem with playing Janna. One of those big spells finds its way onto you, that sucker is going to sting.
And he wasn't even aiming for Smoothie, but that's just what happens when you're an Ardent Sensor support up against a lethality user in Jace. Saya's going to be able to do a lot of damage to Smoothie, but it was nice from Sneaky to get in there. Of course, the 2 shields on the submarine Twitch will have an impact, just not yet, because honestly he's just running around with a Zeal and Berserker Greaves. He attacks quickly, but it's not for a whole lot of damage.
Yeah, that's about it. You shoot really fast, but not really hard. Contracts jumping in there to steal away the red buff.
We'll take that one for free. Thank you very much, Odi, for the leash. Just wins the smite battle, I believe. But
he doesn't even cast the smite.
I'm not even sure, yeah.
Still off cooldown. Adi smited and just didn't time it right.
Odi cooked it.
Unlucky. Sneaky building towards what might be that Runaan's Hurricane you were talking about. Who knows, maybe he'll just leave it there, go for a different item first instead. Just wants the Zeal, but
and I guess
not quite sure.
For reference as well, the reason that you can go for Runaan's Hurricane when you've got a Janna on your team is usually the answer to that. Is
the Ardent Sensor?
Ardent Sensor and the shield that she gives being base AD as a bonus. You get to hit multiple people, attack faster, 4 more damage, it just means that Smoothie is attached at the hip to Sneaky, and there is no way that they should ever separate, and if they do separate, they're both useless, unless they're both together, and then they're like a super machine.
We talked about how synergistic this Cloud9 draft appeared before this game started, and honestly, Cloud9's drafts are something that sets this team apart, both in their domestic play in the North American LCS and here in the play-in stage in 2017. Like, coming into this, we were talking about who's going to adapt to the meta the best, who's going to figure out the world's meta and be able to draft properly. Because you can have a great team, and if they draft like a bunch of goons, they're not going to live up to their potential because they simply are not playing optimized champions. Cloud9 has managed to draft themselves an incredibly coherent team composition, especially against what they're up against. And what you were explaining about the synergy between the bottom laners is a perfect showcase.
Yeah, and it just makes a bunch of sense, right? Pick a team composition that's super easy to execute, or is very difficult to execute, but in the most simple way possible, right? Like, Twitch needs to be a hyper carry. Well, how do we make that easier? 3 shields. Suddenly, Twitch is harder to kill, Twitch can hyper carry. So it's all about minimizing any kind of risks. And right now, with how they've been laning, the fact that we're at 15 minutes in the game and it's 3-0s, it's going pretty well.
Dear Lord, Jensen almost finding the solo kill onto Seiya, but now he's the one who's going to be caught out. Stand United onto him from Impact. Accelerated Shock Blast may come through, not finding its way onto Jensen just yet. The turnaround onto the enemy jungler. Smoothie is here as well to keep these guys safe, popping the heal, and first blood over to Cloud9's mid laner.
There's no teleport from Giral to keep them alive, so the kill's going to go down. Almost 2 with the blinking health bars of Seiya. Cloud9 the first to make the play. And they're not just making the play for the kill, they dove mid lane, and they're still looking. You can see Contract stalking.
Fires off the ulti, finds his way onto Gentix, who is just deleted as the rest of Cloud9 all together as one 5-man unit takes down the tier 1 turret in the mid lane, completes that outer ring, and gets themselves a 4,000 gold lead at 16 minutes. This does not look or feel like a 4,000 gold at 16 minutes game, Rusty, but it is.
It certainly is. I mean, we just watched Gentix pop like a balloon. Just walked at him with pins and just pinned a tail on him. Like, good night, Gentix. We get to watch what happens in the middle lane as well. Very good from Jensen. He just knows he's damaged. He knows he's spiked with the Morellos. One auto was very close to the kill, but it's the Shen ulti. It's the fact that, like, look at Smoothie on the bottom of the screen, walking between 2 turrets to come and shield Jensen. He knows exactly what the goal of the team is. That's protect the damage dealers. And at this point, no teleport to keep the Zac alive, so he'll have to die. And he is the sacrifice for the Jace.
And Impact did so much damage to Adi there. Like, the Titanic Rush Shen, when we were talking about this pick in the draft, I mentioned, I was like, hey, this is great. He defends the guys in the bottom lane, but he's also a pretty capable fighter in the top side. And when you've got that Titanic Rush, because you're not really worried about needing to be a huge tank right from the start,
yeah,
it's great.
I mean, realistically as well, he's against a Abyssal Mask Cho'Gath.
Yeah.
Instead of rushing the Righteous Glory, having any kind of armor. I mean, Shen's auto attacks will now be hurting. He'll also be clearing waves exceptionally well just by having that item rushed. Cho'Gath is going to find himself super tanky against magic damage dealers. But if Twitch is ever onto him and is auto attacking freely, you would imagine that Cho'Gath will also be popping like a balloon.
Yeah,
to a degree.
He'll be doing his Gentix's mid and Cloud9 is collapsing impersonation, which is what he wants to avoid at all costs, because this is what we were talking about in game number 1 as well. Lyon is a team that domestically did well at preventing their opponents from snowballing on them. Internationally, it's a little bit different of a story, simply because the caliber of the opponent you're up against is going to be higher. They need to stop this Cloud9 advantage from getting any further out of hand, but right now it's looking like that's a pretty tall order. Cloud9 pushing on to tier 1 in the top side. Trying to take that one down. 4,500 gold lead should enable them to do it.
And it's not just that they're pushing top side of the map. You know, there's a static shift from a Tristana to Aiden trying to disengage that. It's the fact that they have control of the jungle, as they've got Jensen.
Seiya now going to be having this turn right around on him. Contract swooping in there with the ulti to make sure they seal the deal. White Lotus coming in, trying to find the damage onto Jensen. Manages to get it out, plays the taunt with the flash. Now looking to turn right back around with the auto attacks, but it's Lyon in retreat. Smoothie and Impact here, trying to chase these guys back down. Sneaky's going to be coming in from the flank any moment. Needs to get the attack speed in there, throws out the contaminated flask. But everybody from Lyon is back in time.
And Cloud9 do not choose to continue pushing. It is far too risky to go for that play. And so they'll have to respect. They want the red buff, it looks like. Contracts has already started that one off with a leash. So they'll take the outcome here, being, you know, a slight advantage for them. Red buff going over to Sneaky. But my God, just take a second to appreciate how good of a player White Lotus is again. I know it's weird to say after C9 just got a good trade. You just watch that Tristana in that last play, and it's just pretty. It's so pretty.
I mean, White Lotus played it well, but I've also got to give props to Jensen and Contracts. Let's take a look at this one more time as Audi goes in.
And it's good, you're right, from Jensen and Contracts to know they can kill the Jace. They've already done the damage test last fight, and because he gets blasted, but this is where White Lotus will come in. It's the straight flash, so clean, and then jumps out to safety with the rest of the reinforcements here. And it's the one play like that, and ultimately why I'm talking about that, is no, I'm not.
Uh-oh, Sneaky delivering impact right on top of Seiya to bring him down for the second time this game. No way out of that one. Flash was still down, Cleanse was not available. As soon as the Shen shows up, you are out of there. Sneaky and Smoothie now moving themselves over towards the Rift Herald, which is recently turned into Baron. A little bit early for that, maybe.
Yeah, I would say 20 minutes on the dot might be too early for the objective, but that's because they don't have a Blade of the Ruin King user this time around. It's just the Runar's Hurricane. May take them far too long. Zach has way too many steel paths, so you wouldn't do a 20-minute Baron. What you would do is exactly what they just did, and that is turn Twitch invisible, kill the closest target, and just keep doing that until they get to the Baron for free, or they take turrets above all else. The gold lead's starting to stretch. C9's lead starts to grow, and it's hard to see them slowing down from this point.
And look at how fast Sneaky clears that top wave with that Ardent Sensor plus Runan's combo you were talking about earlier. It just makes him clear the thing near instantly. Contract showing up mid lane. Might want to go on to White Lotus here. Nice sidestep by White Lotus yet again. Got the juke boots laced up today and disengages any further damage coming in from
But here's Sneaky with a big flank.
There you go. Ulti going to be used here soon. Silence, knock up, juggled around, slammed back and forth into his own support. White Lotus taken out by Jensen, but Sneaky falls to Lotus as well. 1-for-1 so far. 80 carry is going to be traded back and forth.
Oh,
Flashed away. Lyon has found an advantage in this fight, but Smoothie with a nice reset on those health bars with the ulti.
Such a good reset. Cancels Jace dashing forwards. And Lyon, they've got Oddie still on a flank, but it doesn't look like they'll be able to continue going.
Honestly, Lyon going even in these fights, 6,000 gold down. Isn't that bad of a situation, but now Geralt finding himself caught out. The damage comes through and Contract has the kill.
Yeah, overstays his welcome this time. So Cho'Gath maybe didn't want to push that far in. Remember, he's only just got the Righteous Glory. The Glacial Shroud is the one component of it. He still dies very quickly. Cloud9, not just the one pick anymore. It becomes another. It becomes an Infernal Drake. Everything continues to cascade as Lyon are very, very far behind.
Nearly 7,000 gold. Take another look at how this fight started off here with White Lotus.
And once again, in a losing game, we get to take a second to appreciate White Lotus, dodging the Sedge ultimate. The second part slows him, but then knowing that that's a bad thing, of course, is going to ult himself out to safety. But Sneaky's here, and as quickly as he gets crowd controlled and knocked around the rift, Jensen exists to do the damage. His positioning was great. The shockwave earlier was fantastic. The awareness from Cloud9 to know they should continue fighting. But then Smoothie, big disengage in a situation where maybe Cloud9 might have lost a member, might have been a really poor trade beyond just Sneaky going down. Not the case.
4-1-2 on Jensen's Orianna, by the way, this game. 100% kill participation, 225 CS. So meeting that 10 CS per minute mark easily. This is the kind of performance that I was talking about when I said the comfort pick, the pick that they go to when they really just need to win the game. And he's showing up on that performance so far. Across the board, though, Seiya, this guy we were talking about being one of these insane players on the side of Lyon, these two carries stepping up time and again for these guys during their Worlds performance so far, having a bit rougher time this time around. 0, 2, and 1. Probably the most times we've seen him die early at all.
And honestly, a lot of it has been just Jensen bullying him around. The shockwaves have resulted in the ability to dive more than the dive happening and a shockwave following that one up. Jensen's doing so much work alone. You're really starting to see Seiya with signs of struggle. And as good as individually these players can look, the team play from Cloud9 still looks that little bit more excellent as they start to pressure.
Oh, speaking of excellent, Lulu is not about to have a very excellent time. Taken down by Sneaky, Smoothie, and Contracts together. There's just too much damage. Wild Growth, not enough.
Oddie tries to escape and uses the blast plant, knocks two of them over the wall as well. Seiya in a bit of trouble.
Damage
He's
Impact
also
does to him. Finding
just
that taunt.
not a teleport user in the bottom lane against the Shen. Cloud9 have free reign of everywhere else on the Rift.
They'll use that to take down the enemy red buff. Contract starts up the Baron, brings the rest of the boys over. Looks like it's time to go for that big objective. 4 minutes ago was a little bit early.
So
Right
many
now,
shields.
just fine.
I don't think that's actually going to be stopped at all. Giral has Flash. He has his ultimate. Zac also exists. Bash
He's trying to go
Brothers.
for the Flash Feast. You never know. Impact, the lone man standing there with the Baron. Tanks it up for a very, very long time. Audi comes in. They're trying to steal this one away, but they can't do it. Contracts gets the secure. They get kills. Soon onto both members that jumped in. Lyon tries a desperation play to get themselves back into the game, but ultimately, it's just not enough. Cloud9, 9K up, 25 minutes in.
It took them a second, but they did, of course, realize in the end that Zac was still inside the pit, just in his passive form, so Shen will lock it down. Sneaky straight to the side lane with the Baron buff there. Good shockwave timing from Jensen to make sure the Feast couldn't go off, but they couldn't get the steal. And great work from Contracts, it seems, to secure that Baron at all.
White Lotus getting himself stunned up. The damage and the CC from this Cloud9 team coordinating those nearly takes down the enemy AD carry, but Genthic's there with the shield and the wild growth to keep him alive.
Yeah, they may not get him, but of course they will still get the turret as we watch his Contracts go straight over the wall to deal with the Cho'Gath. Really like his target priority there, going for Cho. Smites of an equal value, of course, and then flashes over the wall. Being one level ahead, his smite's even slightly larger. And just like that Cho'Gath, I even saw the animation, I think, for a second of the Feast. Cancelled by Jensen's Shockwave.
Jensen now having a Luden's Echo as well means those shockwaves are going to do that much more damage if they're the first thing to hit you. So you've really got to be aware of that ball positioning, exactly like we saw Cloud9 have to do when it was Seiya on the Orianna in game number 2. Lyon is going to have to do the same thing against Cloud9 here. Of course, their job is going to be much more difficult. Being down 11K 26 minutes into a game is no small deficit. These guys are going to have to outplay like crazy to hold the line against Cloud9 here as they push up the mid lane. They find the 6th turret of the game. They have to head into the enemy base now.
I mean, frankly, Lyon need to do a near impossible feat right now to try and prevent this onslaught from Cloud9 getting into their base with how clean they've been able to play League of Legends right now. How simple it feels like it is for C9 to just execute on these strategies. How about this one as well?
Here we go, forcing the flash and the cleanse away from Seiya. That's double summoner spells on the enemy mid laner. For only the single summoner spell of Impact, they've managed to potentially catch Giral out. Impact always looking for those taunts, always looking for the lockdown. Giral gonna lose about half his HP. Audi trying to go in. Contracts with a very nicely timed interrupt, and Contracts and Sneaky and the rest of Cloud9 have found 2. Looking for number 3. Seiya's got no way out. He's gonna fall to Impact. White Lotus, the next man to fall. The double kill for Sneaky. And Cloud9's looking to put this one in the books almost as fast as game number 1. The inhibitor goes down. Lyon is aced. Cloud9 may have had to go through a fight in game number 2, but game 3 was just them putting the final nails in the coffin. They will find their 3-0 victory and punch their ticket to the main group event at Worlds 2017.
Game 1 was clean from Cloud9. Game 2, they were pushed to the limit, but you're right, we come into this 3rd game and suddenly they look reinvigorated all over again. Nothing was going to stop this C9 roster from making it to the main event. NA's got 3 teams to be representing them.
Cloud9 seemed frustrated to have to go through the play-ins, but they put on one hell of a show while they were here, not dropping a single game, a 7-0 record, clean throughout the 2017 play-in stage. They will move on to the main group event further in Wuhan, and they will have an even more difficult task there. You have to stop, you have to celebrate, be glad for this team where they've got with their victory today. But the fact remains, this is only the beginning. The real challenge now starts as you go up against the rest of the teams that are already in the main event, that are already in that main group stage, because it's going to get a lot harder from here on out.
Absolutely. It's not going to get any easier than this tournament if you are C9, but how they got there is important to me as well, because this was a full team effort in game number 3 from them. Pretty much everybody had incredibly high kill participation. Jensen, in this case, was the superstar with 100%, and just a really strong team showing to get them to that position.
Cloud9 made one hell of a mark here in their final game in the play-in stage. They'll be moving on to the groups, and to hear how they took that series in game 3, let's send it over to Dracos in the desk.
Before we get into it, Flowers, I think I want to give the NA correspondents here the opportunity to celebrate. Cloud9 has officially made it into groups. It's the third NA LCS seed coming in. Mark, is there anything special?
Yeah, absolutely. I took the time to actually create myself a little celebration dinner. It's a traditional American meal of meat and carbs. I can't wait to get into it, but I don't want to rush eating it. Oh, also, Zyrene, don't worry, I got something for you. I got a little apple crisp.
Oh, hell yeah.
So you can dig into that when we're done.
Thank you, man.
Okay.
We're done.
I'm not sure where to go from here, but I guess let's talk about the League of Legends game that just happened.
Let's just talk about how historic this is for North America, because North America has not won a best-of series at Worlds since Season 1. So the gap is closing, despite what people are telling you.
All the more reason to celebrate.
All right, but how did they do it, gentlemen? I'm glad that they did it. I'm glad that you are willing to die from that meal to celebrate. but how did it actually happen?
I think it was another good draft out of them. I think all 3 games, C9 has had pretty good drafts. They focused a little bit on scaling late for the most part. They also have strong plays to look for in the early game. And then as they go later and later, they're just slightly better than Lyon Gaming. I really think this was a tough draw for Lyon because they rely so much on their individual skill. And it's just a tough matchup versus C9.
Yeah, and talking about draft for a second, the Twitch, this is the first Twitch of the entire tournament that we've seen. Surprised we haven't seen him more, but it makes a lot of sense for Cloud9, and they ended up winning the bottom lane, and they started playing around that, right? We said, oh, you should play around something that's not the mid lane with Jensen. So they decide, okay, maybe we'll play around bottom a little more on the side of Lyon, something that ended up getting them an advantage in game 2. But now it's a shield composition with a Shen that kind of prevents you from playing towards that bottom side very heavily.
And then I feel like they did the one thing on the side of Lyon in response to this that we told them not to do. The one thing, audience, that we told them not to do.
Don't attack Jensen.
Don't go mid. And then we look what happens when they do go mid. And we can take a look at this first replay. Ultimately, this is why you don't want to mess with Jensen in the mid lane.
Yeah, the counter pick was not working out super well. They start pressuring solo, so of course Audi comes in to try and turn this one around, but C9 is always ready to defend Jensen. He gets that Shen ult to help bring him in, and you see the entire rest of C9 is collapsing in through the bot side, so just really heads up play out on them. It did work a little bit in game 2 attacking Jensen, but that was after they built the lead elsewhere. This time around, without any real pressure going down, if you instantly try and attack Jensen, C9 is ready to respond.
Yeah, they did a fantastic job, but I feel like playing around mid is something that you have to do eventually in the game. It just happens, right? It's the central part of the map, gets you everywhere else. So we're saying don't play around mid. You can't section off the most important part of the map and just try to get around it. It's so much harder to do. It takes more moves to get all the way around, takes more time. So going through mid is something that I think you eventually have to do.
Yeah, as a general game plan, think of C9's mid lane as a bunker, try and flank the bunker, don't go right towards it, but eventually you do need to bust that bunker up.
And one thing I really like is that we did see bot lane suffer in the previous matchup. We did see kind of Smoothie and Sneaky start to fall behind, but this time around they clearly came much more prepared for White Lotus and Genthix and maybe gave them the necessary respect. But honestly, Janna, a support we didn't expect to do anything. We heard the casters talking about it actually really helping win out on that lane.
Yeah, it's definitely a lane where the Lulu counter pick usually works out pretty well. Tristana has pressure. You think this is a lane that you should just basically have shoved in 24/7, and it didn't quite work out this time around. Maybe a little less comfort on abusing someone in lane with Tristana than you're used to seeing with the Varus pick, who has a little bit more bully potential.
Yeah, I feel like Smoothie played incredibly well this entire series, and the fact that they knew when to pick, having the heal and barrier in the bottom lane, the barrier used very early on by Sneaky, so he didn't get this gigantic deficit, was able to just heal back up and not take a large chunk to his HP, was actually pretty heads-up play, even though the trades were something that I don't 100% agree with at the beginning of the game.
Well, with all this praise for Smoothie, I think it's no surprise that he will be our player of the series. Of course, coming in clutch, there were a lot of fantastic performances across the board for Cloud9, but Smoothie just felt like he was so consistently making his mark in this series.
He's a guy who has a lot of ups and downs. He started his career on TDK, had a long period of time where he was trying to figure out where exactly he was going to lane in the league, spent some time on Liquid before finally getting his foot in the door at C9, and since then has just taken off to another level, and here finally picking up the first player of the series at Worlds for North America in 6 years.
Damn, that's my boy, though, because, like you said, the guy was auto-relegated on a team. Then he came back, Liquid benched him. Then he started having to fight for his spot against 20 Fufu on Cloud9, earned it, people kind of had that criticism of, I feel like maybe Bunny was a little better, but you're seeing now, Smoothie, it pays off in spades. He's a large part of their shot calling, he's a large part of the playmaking, and he even has a large part of the disengage and how they reassess fights. We think of the redemption to reset after Jensen got caught. He covers a lot of his team's mistakes, and it allows them to keep pushing forward with their plan.
Overall, has to be a performance he can be proud of, but we're going to send it over to Fish, who's standing by for an interview with the newest bot laner to promote to the group stage.
Thanks, guys. I'm here with Sneaky, the AD carry from Cloud9 after their victory today. Congratulations that you'll be moving into the main stage, or the main group stage of World Championship. But before this match, you kind of had a sneaky comment about Lyon, saying you're wishing them a flight home before the match even started. Besides Game 2, it was relatively, one-sided towards you guys. What did you think of Lyon after that series?
They're okay. I mean, initially I wasn't really sure what to expect, because coming into Worlds, we had to play against a bunch of wildcards, and they really are wildcards because they can just take a bunch of games off people. Like Albus Nox last year did really well. They went into quarters when it was completely unexpected. So yeah, we weren't underestimating them at all, and yeah, I hope the flight home is safe.
I'm glad that I'm pretty sure they'll be glad to hear that as well. Going into the next stage of Worlds, so there's 2 groups you could be seeded into. It's either SKT, EDG, and AHQ, or G2, Royal, as well as Samsung. Which group do you want to go into, and which group do you not want to go into, and why?
I think I prefer EDG, SKT, AHQ. Honestly, I think EDG is probably able to be taken down. I'd say more so than, Samsung, G2, and RNG. Because RNG has always come out strong during Worlds, and EDG has usually faltered, so I hope we can take the crown from them.
Well, let's see if you can do that as you move into the next stage of Worlds. And finally, since Cloud9 has been on the LCS, you've been to every single World Championship with them 5 times now, I believe. What's different this time, and what is it going to take for Cloud9 to go all the way?
Well, we do have a lot of different teammates now. Well, obviously we have contracts that's different for this year specifically. The rest of the members are the same. But yeah, it's been a long road. It's been pretty rocky. We had not the greatest split, and we ended up pretty decently at the end, and then we lost in playoffs. So now we're here in Gauntlet, from the Gauntlet, hoping to prove ourselves once again. I mean, it's just a different team atmosphere. Before, I think Mios was a lot of the voice in the team, and I think I've kind of taken over that role, and it's a little bit different dynamic. So yeah, I hope we can prove ourselves.
Well, hopefully you can do just that. Best of luck in the next stage of Worlds. We're going to go into a break. We'll be back with Hong Kong Attitude taking on Fnatic.
Accelerated shock blast may come through, not finding its way onto Jensen just yet. The turnaround onto the enemy junglers. They've got Jensen. Saya now going to be having this turn right around on him. Contract swooping in there with the ulti. Ulti going to be used here soon. Silence, knock up, juggled around, slams back and forth into his own support. White Lotus taken out by Jensen, but Sneaky falls to Lotus as well. They start to pressure. Oh, speaking of excellent, Lulu is not about to have a very excellent time. Tanks it up for a very, very long time. Audi comes in. They're trying to steal this one away, but they can't. Saya's got no way out. He's going to fall to Impact. White Lotus, the next man to fall. The double kill for Sneaky. And Cloud9's looking to put this one in the books.
Welcome back to the World's 2017 elimination stage. We're still Mark and Dracos, but we've swapped out our NA bias to accommodate some EU analysis with Andrew Vedieste.
Hello, gentlemen. How are you?
Good, man.
Full.
Mark, yes, very quickly ate. All right, well, the stage is set for our next series of the day, Fnatic versus Hong Kong Attitude. Now, these two teams are coming into it after a pretty rough play-in group stage, both very close to the top, but still didn't feel like the cleanest sets.
Yeah, I mean, I think these guys probably had the hardest time getting into exactly where they wanted to be. HKA narrowly missed that #1 seed after taking 1907 Fenerbahce to a tiebreaker, unable to actually convert on it after that. So you got to feel like they are hungry for some revenge.
Yeah, and looking back at that game, it was so close too. Both those teams fighting tooth and nail to try and secure that first place spot. But unfortunately for HKA, they just couldn't find the teamwork, couldn't find those mid-game fights that would allow them to win the game. But you can see that in terms of their early game, it's definitely an area that Fnatic might need to be scared of.
Definitely, because when we look at how Fnatic were able to come out on top, a lot of strong team fighting, a lot of strong ability in some of those games, but definitely not consistency across the board.
It's basically like everyone struggled at one point during their games. They did smash very hard in the bot lane 3 games before they finally had their one struggle, and even then they went late a couple times. So there's still a little bit of cleaning up to do, but it's hard to see them not performing here just because they have so many strong players.
Yeah, and I think it's really fascinating to look at how these teams go, because you have one team that built a lot of their advantages in terms of the early laning phase, whereas Fnatic, one of their big strengths was their ability to team fight, their coordination. Some of their comebacks were really impressive in finding those opportune fights and those opportune moments to swing things in their
And you
favor.
talk about the laning phase, mid lane does feel like it could be a mismatch given the success that Godquai and Mission were able to have and how shaky Brox and Capsa look. They did have some good performances, but also were kind of a weakness at certain points.
Oh, yeah, they were doing a good job punishing mid laners when they had their summoners down. They were able to get onto Frozen a couple times, who was supposed to be one of the big playmakers for 1907 Fenerbahce, and he was a little bit later in the game.